Ladies and gentlemen, the Madison County Board of Education regular session for Tuesday, April 24th is now called to order. Mr. Massey, if you would be so kind as to lead us in a word of prayer.
All right, Lord, thank you for this this day and your blessings on us, and thank you for this country we live in and in this county and the school systems that we're honored to serve. Just pray in your guidance and wisdom. In your name, amen. All right, we'll start with some updates. First, the update is our little welcome basket. Do you guys want to?
Yes, we have them out here.
Thank you. Do y'all know who that's from?
Yeah, it's from the MCEA.
It is from the MCEA. So Ms.
I'm
Benita,
assuming we have somebody here.
Ms. Benita, would you like to share some words of?
Is my card written in cursive?
I'm sorry.
Is my card written in cursive?
We just want to thank you for all you do. We thought about doing this during Board Appreciation Month, but we thought, by the end of the year, that was time. We just want to treat you special and thank you for everything you've done for our students and our teachers, but also for working with us so closely and being there when we have questions or concerns and everything. So I appreciate everything you've done this year.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the inside joke is Ms.
Yeah, I was
Benita
gonna say.
is one of the
Got recognized for her use of cursive in the classroom, nationally recognized, so.
In kindergarten.
We're quite proud of her, in kindergarten.
her kindergarten's writing cursive. So, hey, Miss Morris, you know about the retirement dinner?
Yes, May 8th happens to be the same night as you guys, but your invitation is supposed to be on the way.
Okay, so there's the retirement dinner, Miss Stowe. I know you don't miss that. Miss Bates, you haven't missed that. I'm not sure if y'all have had a chance to go. So it's at 6 on the day of our board meeting. So we're either going to need to either start that board meeting at about 4 or change the days or not go.
You're
Or
optimistic.
just show up for dessert.
Changing the day would be
Or
more
show up.
appropriate.
So, so I don't know if y'all want to look at that now or later, or?
We can look at it later, because I have whole board arrangements as well to, we've been able to clarify those, so we can do that towards the end. If you guys are okay with that, we
Yeah,
can
that's
look to
good.
see if there's another date besides the 8th that would be helpful.
Or we can just start the meeting there right before dinner and finish it.
Yeah.
We can just have the meeting at the, is it at the Ledges?
No, actually, it's going to be
Where?
Oh.
Sunshade. Oh, we could have the board meeting at Sunshade's out on the deck. Okay.
Good.
So thanks, Ms. Moyers, for that. The one update I wanted to let you know is we're getting some sidewalks in at New Hope. Carrie, you want to add a little bit of kind of explanation to kind of what's going into that?
Yes, sir. They're putting sidewalks on actually all the way around New Hope, Elementary New Hope High School on the back road, off of Main, off road there. They've got a grant, a federal grant they're applying for, but they need permission to get on our easements. So right away, an easement, but they'll need additional easement for construction to get on our property to put those sidewalks in. So this would be a good enhancement on the school facility.
So who did the grants? Who's?
New Hope, the city of New Hope is doing a grant that they have to have in by May the 1st.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So they're going to put it all together. They just need a letter from us as one of the landowners that it will affect.
Is this a grant with the state?
I don't know if it's a federal or state grant. No, state didn't tell me. They said it was a grant that they were
State.
applying for.
Commissioner Hill says it's a state grant. So,
Yeah, let me back up. That's a state grant.
so I'll be signing the letter to
Good thing he was
submit to
here.
them.
That'd be great. We can sit on the sidewalk and watch the parade.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. Buckhorns won the NASA buggy competition. It used to be moon buggy, but now that we're going to Mars, they got some Mars/moon buggy. So the Buckhorn High School team actually outscored even the college division winners. So we're excited about that. So we'll probably have them in, invite them in, see if they can come in May to get some recognition on that. And Endeavor Elementary was recognized. And do we have the video, Mark? Mark's going to pull up the video here. It was a big news day yesterday, so it didn't get a whole lot of coverage. But they were the first ever stop for Northrop Grumman has a mobile STEM lab, and they picked Endeavor to be the first stop on their tour. And so it was exciting for them to be able to go. So whenever you got that ready, Mark, you can roll it. Got to get that one done. We just need that music playing the whole board meeting.
I know.
Well, while he's, you can talk about Sparkman Indoor?
Do what?
You talk about
Hi,
Sparkman
I'm Dan
Indoor
Royal.
percussion?
Yeah. So, but while Mark's working on that, so Sparkman Indoor Percussion competed at the World Championships in Ohio.
Vice President, General Manager for
So turn the volume down that, Mark, until you can get the video to come up.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So you want to talk a little bit about, did they finish fourth?
They finished fourth in the World Championships up in Dayton again. This was the first year that they went back since 2016 when they won the World Championships in their category. So they beat fourth out of 38 teams, 38 groups. So another outstanding showing by the Sparkman Indoor Percussion.
All right, well, good deal. I'll send out that video in my Monday starter, so y'all can.
Yeah, the quality's
y'all can-
too
you-
good
Y'all
for
can
Lee.
cover that, it's fine. We'll get it, we'll grab it later. And with that, is that,
Now we're all messed
I will recommend approval of the agenda for April 24th, 2018.
up. Motion, second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the agenda?
I had a question. So when we get to A, under discussion, is that to encompass all aspects of that meeting?
Well, I was just going to allow kind of for some reflection with that, just kind of recap it. You guys are welcome to chime in.
I would like to say that we need to talk about the half-cent sales tax.
Okay, that is,
Is that part of that
you can
discussion?
do that,
Okay.
yes. It's going to be an open discussion
Okay.
for that, so.
Any further discussion regarding the agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, so leading us off here, I wanted to kind of recap, I don't know, maybe unprecedented thing, but definitely a landmark day yesterday. We had a joint meeting with the Madison County Commission. We both gavelled in session and talked about a lot of issues, whether it's the funding agreement deal that we had that we're trying to kind of negotiate our way through revising or being able to work our way so we can proceed with the capital plan the board approved from increased revenues that Representative Rucker, or Board Member Rucker brought up. And, we got a couple commissioners here too. I'd like to actually get their kind of opinion or take on things. And commissioners, okay, we can kind of start with you guys and we'll let kind of the board chime in, just kind of have a little open discussion on, appreciated you guys taking the time to come in and be a part of that yesterday.
That's one thing. Like, is it okay to interject with the audience? I mean, we don't normally do this.
Well, I think I can ask, since it's an open discussion, we're not voting on anything right now. So, I want to ask them to participate in that discussion since they were yesterday.
Well, sometime can I ask somebody to participate?
Well, I mean, we've done that before. I think Commissioner Vanderbilt was called upon in the last meeting,
So
actually.
it's okay if I want to bring somebody in and just.
If it's on the agenda to have as a discussion item and they pertain to that, then that would be fine. We've had that a lot of times. If we talk about the exemption policy, we've asked,
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Principals
I
in.
just to set the precedence, anytime I want to talk about something, it's going to be okay to bring somebody and let them talk about it.
well, we had two commissioners here at the last meeting and they chimed in their thoughts.
I'm
on
not
it, too.
arguing with you. I'm
We
just
do that
saying-
all the time, Sherry.
I'm just saying, I just want to know for the future, it's going to be okay for me to do the same thing.
If you want to call on somebody else to
I'm not
open up
talking
the
about
floor on
tonight.
that, you're welcome to do that.
Is this protocol, Cindy? Is this fine?
It has been done before in certain circumstances, but it was not part of your policy to address the board. You have a 72-hour rule.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but this
Robert's
is.
Rules of Order does allow for you to lend your time to a member of the audience to answer a question if they are asked
So
that
the other
question.
night when Mr. Butler was here, he had to wait, but that's.
He was requesting to address the board.
No one
He
on the
had not-
board offered to lend time to him, and we were not made aware of that until after the board meeting. If you recall, last time I did directly ask Chairman Strong a question, and he was allowed to answer. So you can lend your time to a member of the audience if you're willing to do so, but to have an open discussion that goes on and on is different than lending your time for an answer to a question.
I have no problem, I'm just trying to
And I
understand.
think right
the
now,
procedure.
we're kind of going over something that we've never done before anyway, because we've never been asked to meet in a joint meeting before, and now we're recapping that joint meeting. And I think if we're going to do so, it would be prudent to allow those members who have agreed to attend tonight or have in their own right agreed to attend to have an opportunity to also share their reflection on that meeting.
Okay, as long as we're consistent going
Yeah,
forward.
I don't think that at every board meeting, we want to invite 4 or 5 people from the audience to just have an open discussion. That's not how it's supposed to go, but you can lend time to the floor if there is a specific comment you would like to have their input on. We've done that before. When we had questions about the attendance rule, we've asked a certain principal that may be there. When we had questions about daycare that Ms. Bass's school had, we asked her specifically to answer that. So we have made items that were very pertinent to that person's attendance be allowed to have some input from them if we ask that question.
All right,
That's not new. We've done that in the past.
okay.
I appreciate you taking the time to be here and to come yesterday and spend a couple hours at the chamber yesterday, and the other board members. I appreciate y'all working that in. And so, I mean, I wanted to get kind of your thoughts on kind of how it went and any, kind of ideas of going forward. Anything you'd like to kind of share your impressions of the meeting?
Well, I guess first I would say that I certainly don't want to complicate a very complex issue by being here tonight. And I certainly don't represent the county commission. I'm only one vote of 7 on the county commission, and I'm glad to share with you my thoughts. It's nothing official. This is something that I have really been concerned about a long time, is putting this behind us and going forward. I think that's the big issue. I have always supported education. I have always supported more money for education. I have supported the half-cent sales tax 2 times when it came up without playing the game of let's make a deal. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's good government to make deals for schools for taxes. I think the school board is elected to further the opportunities of education for the kids in our community, our county. I think it's your obligation. I think it's your job. I don't think it's the county commission's job to tell you where you need to put schools or make deals with you where you put schools. So I ask you, just do your job, do what you think is best, do what your conscience tells you to do, and let the county commission handle other business. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is experience talking, and there's no substitute for experience. Being a new member of the commission, I think a lot of positive conversations occurred yesterday. We're still a long way from resolution. But first and foremost, as a parent of 2 children in the Madison County school system, I hope a resolution can come before us that will be satisfactory to both sides, and we can move forward with improving instruction and facilities in the Madison County school system countywide. I will uphold my position with that as we move forward from the commission. Thank you for allowing us to be here.
Thank you.
That's great.
Do you want to just kind of work around and everybody kind of give their impressions or takeaways from yesterday?
Well, I think it was a good meeting. I think we were able to address, I appreciate Ms. Rucker and Mr. Massey providing those presentations to let the commission know where we stood, and I appreciate the feedback from the commission. I hope we can come to some agreement, some resolution of the half-cent. I'm on record to say I'd support the half-cent sales tax increase. I hope the commission looks at it and sees the issues that face Madison County, both instructionally and infrastructure. We have facilities that are in desperate need of repair. We have vast instructional needs that we need to accomplish. Our kids deserve. When you look around our counties, you look around, you look at Coleman County, you look at Huntsville City, you look at all these other counties, they're well above our tax rates than we have in Madison County at 5.5. So I think for our kids, it's valuable. It's a benefit for our children. I think we laid that groundwork yesterday at the meeting. It was very informative for me. I appreciate you guys sharing that information. The school is something that we need to work on a resolution on. That's something that I hope we can come to some agreement and we can look at a plan going forward.
Yeah, I thought the meeting yesterday was very productive to have everybody sitting together hearing the same information at the same time. And what I wanted to say tonight is I think that we should have a resolution go out to the county commission and just trying to reach some kind of compromise that, and so here's what I think we should do. We should lay out why we need the half-cent sales tax. We need it because we're fully leveraged. We don't have any ability to borrow any more money, and we need it because we've already responded to all this growth. We've built 12 schools over the years since the BRACs came about, and so we've responded to the growth, and now we need to respond to all the infrastructure needs that we have to maintain the 12 schools we built, and then all the older schools. There's 15 older schools that have pretty much not gotten any attention since we've started building all the new schools. So that's the reason we need this half-cent sales tax. Another reason we need it is we need to position ourselves to grow, because growth's coming. We've got the Toyota Mazda plant coming. We've got the FBI jobs potentially coming. And all of that will bring even more people coming. So we need to be positioned to respond to that. We don't need to just sit here and ignore it. And then we need to have the half cent because we want to maintain the level of education that we have. We have a good school system, but we have needs. And when you look at the budget, the 83% of our budget goes to personnel. And so when you start thinking about how you're going to meet these needs, there's only really one bucket of money that you're going to be able to pull from. And we don't want to do that because we have good teachers and we have good staff. And so we need another source of revenue. So what's the answer? So I think what we do is we have a half-cent resolution go to the county commission, and we say that we will not leverage the revenue stream that comes from that half-cent. We won't leverage it unless we build a high school, because the problem we have is a high school costs a lot of money, and we can never get that much money at one time. That's why we had to build Sparkman 9, because we couldn't get enough money for a high school. So today, some people say we don't need a high school. Some people say we do need a high school. Time's going to tell when growth happens. It's going to be evident that we either do or we don't. And so don't leverage the money stream unless you're going to build a high school. Otherwise, you just use that $11 million as it comes in to meet your needs. And that way you're positioned to grow, but you're not committed to it. You have a position, you have this stream of money that you can leverage, but you don't leverage it until you know you have that need. And Dave, you said that the decision to build the high school wasn't vetted, that it was made overnight, it wasn't, there was no process for that. So let's go through that process and let's figure out, yes, we need it, or no, we don't.
And I agree. And now, let me just state it to Craig and to Roger. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and thank you very much for allowing us to get together yesterday. It went beyond my expectations. So I'm just going to say that. It was a little bit unnerving to be there. It was an unusual experience. It was very unusual for the two bodies to come together and to meet, but we appreciate the opportunity to come and to talk about the needs and the requirements of the Madison County school system. The half cent that Sherry's talking about, that we've all been talking about, is not about any one project. It's about what's right and what's necessary for the students of Madison County school system. And that has got to be paramount for any decision making when it comes to the half-cent sales tax. The educational needs, the instructor needs, the material needs, the equipment needs, all of that has to go above anything else that we do with that half cent. You know, if we get the half cent, then that authority and power has to come back to the Board of Education to use the half cent as we feel necessary, based on the feedback that we get from all of our constituents. You know, we need to evaluate how to use and how to best use that revenue that's generated. I don't know if we want to not leverage it, if we need to build a school somewhere else other than potentially in Monrovia. I think we have to leverage that money, and we can do so incrementally. But I don't think that any half-cent resolution should be tied to a capital plan, or nor should it be tied to building any specific building anywhere. It needs to be a clean resolution, and it needs to come with no strings attached. The intent behind the half-cent sales tax is for the benefit of the 19,000 students of Madison County, period. And that's what the resolution needs to state. But thank you all for your gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Dave, I think if you agree not to leverage it, because if you build an elementary school.
Okay. Discussion is one thing, but letter A was a recap of the joint meeting. Have we recapped the joint meeting? Because to have a discussion and a rebuttal and debate about whether or not to write a resolution for the half cent is really not what the agenda item is
I
about.
asked that question before we ever got started.
And you had your opportunity to discuss that you thought part of the recap was the need for a resolution, but to continue to go back and forth is outside the scope of the agenda item.
And so can we add a half cent to the agenda? That was my first question.
At this point in time, we've approved an agenda does not have a half cent on it. I appreciate what you did yesterday at the meeting. You laid out very clearly, and that was part of the recap. You very clearly laid out for the commission all the items that you just said would need to go into a resolution. But to continue to discuss this when the agenda item was recap of a meeting yesterday is off topic from what we're discussing.
That was why I asked the question.
I understand, and you were given an opportunity
So
to
you
say
misled
that
me.
you thought that, no, I didn't answer that
I
question,
thought you
first
were
of all.
asking to discuss the half cent that was
Yes.
discussed. We discussed the half cent yesterday, but
I asked, could we add an agenda item to discuss it, and you led me to believe that we could discuss it in full in this period of time.
You are.
Now you're trying to cut me off.
No, I think what Ms. Bates is saying, you're asking to add the agenda item to add a resolution.
No,
which-
I'm asked to discuss it. So it's, can we continue to discuss it, or are you going to cut the discussion off?
At the close of all the meetings, you guys can kind of close in discussion whatever you want to.
Yes, but
This
to
is-
follow the agenda, we are off topic at this time.
Well,
You
I'd
have-
like to say that I thought, the meeting was good. I had some reservations going into it because of some meetings that I had had prior to that. But I think any time that there's open dialogue between our two bodies, it's a good thing. And we need to do that every year. We need to constantly update the commission, whether it falls on deaf ears or not. And the two guys sitting here tonight, it does not ever fall on deaf ears with them. Education has a great friend in Roger Jones, and has for many, many years. He's always one we can depend on, and I'm confident that Craig will, coming out of education, that he will be the same. But I thought it was good. I thought the commission listened. They responded. They had questions. Sherry did a great job outlining everything that we had as far as what our needs are and what we had to draw from. She did a wonderful job with that, and Matt did a good job as well. And I just thought it was a good meeting. I don't know what the results will be. We did make an offer, open offer to the commission to pay them back the $2 million that they have given us over the past year since 2013 so we could get all of our funds from the BRAC. We did make that offer to them, and hopefully that will be on their agenda if we can do a resolution tonight. I don't want to get into that. But, we want to pay them back. We want to move on because we have so many needs in Madison County that need to be addressed. And just to be honest, we need that money all over this county. But I thought it was good.
I did too. I think the meeting went very well. It was, we did used to have those meetings, not gavelled in, but just as basically an informative meeting that we used to have at the beginning of each year along with the legislators. I think that all in all, the fact that we have some new board members within the last year to 2 years, as well as the fact that we do have some new county commissioners being able to come together and hear some of those topics basically straight from the horse's mouth and be able to interact was a good thing. I think it allowed, I think we all know that in singular meetings or with a recap like we're doing now, or even with text or email, some tone and some inflection can get lost, and sometimes there's some assumptions made, but I think in a meeting like that, we were able to communicate with each other on a level that allowed us to be able to hopefully move forward.
Would you guys are y'all asking for future meetings like that?
I think it's a good idea with the commission and with our,
least we're trying to-
with our representatives and senators. It's just, I just think it's good for us to
Okay.
know one another and to have an open dialogue with them.
Okay. Well, I see Ms. Stender's in the back with our community involvement coordinator, so we'll add to your task, Ms. Stender.
So can we go around?
Buckhorn always has a good breakfast.
If you would like to
Just so you
discuss a
know.
recap of the meeting and add another item, that's
I would
fine.
like to discuss how we're going forward from the meeting. How about that? Is that included in the
I think
discussion?
we can discuss that as a future topic, but right now, the idea was to recap the meeting that was had.
That was what I wanted to add to the agenda.
I-
And I was kind of misled that this was going to be a substitute for doing that. So can we go back and add it?
The superintendent would have to make a recommendation to amend the agenda, and that is up to him whether or not to do that.
And that's what I'm asking for. I think
Yeah.
that's a reasonable thing to ask for.
Or he can choose to add that to one of the already added items.
I mean, we're going to be talking about a resolution in item A. If, you know, I think we give time at the end of the meeting for you guys to kind of add any input or things that you would like to add.
Can we just add a resolution?
Cindy, have you looked at any potential resolutions? I mean, you usually draft those for us.
I've not been, I found the one, and I think I sent to you that was done by all three school systems in 2006, but I've not been asked to
Okay.
draft
I-
anything else.
Really, all I'm after is, can we agree if we're going to, we're obviously not going to draft it as we sit here. Can we agree that we are planning to do one, and we will be working on that, or we agree that we're just not going to do one?
Well, I'll add my input on that, if that's okay, just for a
Y'all can either
minute.
discuss it at this point, or you can add it to the end where you go around the room. That's what I thought you were
Yeah,
going to do.
well, can we discuss it at the end of that, really, so we
It
can?
kind of pertains before we ever
Okay.
get into the
The
rest of the.
commission chairman, point blank, called on every single one of the board members to ask if they, was it to support the half cent, or do y'all need it, or something of the sense.
Supported.
Every board member was asked to answer that question, and every board member answered in the affirmative. And then he immediately went on camera right after and blasted the board for asking for a tax increase when he is the one that brought
Time
it
out.
up to say it.
Phil?
No, time out. I didn't interrupt you. So to me, that was a very clear hand-raised yes, that everybody supported it. And then he goes and blasts all of you for doing that on camera. And so, and then says in that meeting, hey, you get a resolution, we'll put it up for a vote of the commission. On camera, right after that, when it wasn't open dialogue, says we're going to put it up for a vote to the people. And that's clearly one, I know Ms. Stowe said, if we're going that route, let's just not go. So to me, I think a resolution right now would be foolhardy. You guys have made it very clear, and by a show of hands and your voice vote, that you approve that. Now, in counter, when we asked the commission to every one of them, will you support this resolution, and offered, came in with a check for $2 million, a couple of them answered in the affirmative they would, but the rest of them would not, and hid behind a procedural rule where they didn't want to take that up.
That's their
So,
rule.
to me, no, it is very relevant.
It's their
That this
rule, though.
board, hang on, that this board was very open to about what our needs, and let's come to a resolution. And so I don't think the board needs to put something else in writing when y'all have made it very clear of what the needs are. And so, that said, if we want to, I'm not prepared to put on a resolution. You guys can write whatever resolutions you want. I mean, y'all do that. That's your right to do that. But it's not on the agenda tonight. If we want to discuss it further, we can
I
talk
did
about
want to
whether we do
say
that.
something. Phil Vanderford made the statement, you put a resolution together, send it to the commission, and we will vote on it. Now, I didn't see the interview with Dale, so I don't know
When was
what
the
he
last
said.
resolution made?
2006.
Did they, commission vote on it, or they put it up for a popular?
The commission voted on
The commission voted it up or down? Okay.
Right, and
So-
so that's what he said to do. And here, we sit here constantly and we say, if we only had a half-cent sales tax. Well, you know how you get a half-cent sales tax? You vote on it. And so if we never ask them to vote on it, it's been 10 years, how in the world do you get one?
Well,
So-
I think it's a bit auspicious to say if we never ask, when clearly yesterday we asked.
They
As a matter of
want a
fact, Mary
resolution.
Louise's exact words were, I beg of you to please do that. So if you call that not asking, I'm confused as to what you think an ask is.
How did we ask before? We wrote a resolution.
We
Okay,
have
that is
asked
the way
so
you
many
ask.
different ways that it's not even at this point worth talking about.
It is,
We have
Angie.
asked, we have met, we have passed resolutions, and every single time they have come back with a reason not to. And you know what? That's their choice. But to continue to dog at them over something they have clearly said they do not want to do is
They
somewhat, in
haven't
my
said
opinion,
that.
disrespectful.
They haven't said that.
Dale Strong got on the news last night and said a taxation of the people should never come from a county commission or a school board. It should come from the people, and it should be placed on the ballot. He said exactly that on video, WHNT.
He's one of 7 members of the commission.
I understand that.
And
So-
what I said yesterday, just to clarify, is that the commission needs to make this decision, not go to a vote of the people. If this 1/2 cent sales tax, which was approved by the legislature in 1985, and it's been sitting on the desk all of this time because they chose just to put a 1/2 cent on instead of the whole cent, if it came to a vote of the people, then Huntsville City and Madison City's citizens would vote along with our citizens that are just totally Madison County. And they already have so much more funding than we have. It's doubtful to me that this would pass a vote of the people. But it could be put on at the commission meeting any day that they met. But the way that we would secure that is with a vote at the commission table, not with a vote of the people. It was defeated soundly before, and Madison and Huntsville didn't have near the funding that they have now.
And that would be a part of our resolution. We want to vote of the commission. We don't want to vote of the people because of all the circumstances that have happened since 1985. It just won't work as a vote of the people. It's illogical. You have to vote it as the commission. But we can't keep complaining about our funding if we're not even willing to write a resolution and ask for a 1/2 cent sales tax.
Get with Cindy and come up with a resolution. You're asking the board to vote on a resolution that's
I'm not
hypothetical.
asking them to vote. I'm asking them to agree that we're going to draft a resolution. I said that a
You
minute
can
ago.
get with Cindy and draft a resolution and bring it up for the board to consider.
So I'm not going to waste my time doing it if you're not going to consider passing it.
Well, what you're asking us to do is vote on something that's not a recommendation right now.
I'm not asking you to vote on a thing. I'm asking you to agree that that's the path we want to go on, that we want to send them a resolution.
But the only thing we can do, Sherry, is to draft a resolution. We can't ever tell Matt what to do. He has to tell us, but we can draft a
So are
resolution.
you in general agreement that that's a logical next step?
Draft the resolution and we can read it. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll come up for
Yeah, you're asking
recommendation
us
for
to
vote.
tell you whether or not we would vote yes to something we've not seen.
So-
If you
I'm
want to
saying
draft a
I'm not asking you to
resolution.
vote on anything. I'm asking you, is that the general direction that we want to head, that we want to ask for? And we'll have to get the language together, and we'll all have to agree on the language, but is that the general direction to take? To me, it is.
Before I commit to that, I want to see what the resolution has to say.
You're willing to draft it? and
But
go
I'm
through the
willing to see
process.
a draft of a resolution.
I'm certainly willing to entertain a resolution to present to the commission.
Okay, good.
So the next meeting, we'll present it for discussion, I guess, yes? Not try to vote on it, but let's
Right.
discuss
I mean,
it.
you guys can pass resolutions without my recommendation.
We've done that before.
Okay, so the next meeting, do we want to plan to discuss what the proposal is to the resolution?
You can present it to be voted on if it's finished in time, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean that anybody has to vote yes to that. It's very similar to years ago when we drafted a resolution about the rock quarry in Gurley. I mean, it's not unprecedented at all to do that.
Okay,
You
so
have
present
within
it
your
for
right
vote,
to
and
do
then
that,
we'll
you know,
table it.
2 hours ago. I mean,
I'm not asking you tonight. I'm just asking for direction. You keep saying I want you to vote on something.
You have the
never
right
said
to do
vote
that.
on
You have the right to present a resolution to the board at any
Okay.
time.
All right, so that's what we'll do.
All right, we'll move along to item B unless there's any other updates or recaps. I do appreciate everybody coming together, and I look forward to the county commission resolving, coming to a resolution with that. I think getting us back to square will be good and allowing us to expend those funds where they'll impact students district-wide. We have an opportunity to do that and impact all 19,000 students here. All right, on an update, of the capital plan safety items. So back in, maybe it was November, we approved and funded item 1 on the capital plan, which was $750,000 in safety items. That was funded.
February.
Yeah.
February, we
February
funded it.
timeframe.
November, you approved the capital plan. February, you funded item 1, or item 3, as 1 and 2 are already under progress. But the one item that was funded was some safety upgrades. Again, we have formed a safety committee, and Dr. Minsky's kind of heading that up and has given recaps on that. But we are doing some hard improvements, some minor construction things. So, Kerry, you want to give us an update on where we are?
Yes, sir. We proceeded immediately to make some changes in some schools, to make them safer. Primarily our high schools first. That's where we have most of the kids that come in and out, the fees over into their area. So we've been using some maintenance money. We're down, way down on the maintenance money. At this point, we are ready. We've got to keep going. We just can't stop right now and say it's safe enough. So we've got all of our quotes together. We've got everything together, some architects together, engineers. We've already got the designs in. We're ready to purchase the materials, put them into place, and in particular at Hayes Green High School, and two places actually at Hayes Green High School, and also, and we're putting in 7 schools with key card entry and video phones to make those safer. And we're ready. We're rolling right now. We're ready to keep on moving, but it's going to cost us. That part is going to cost us another $75,000, and that's just the beginning of what we're doing here. We're also in motion at Mid-Market School, Riverton Intermediate School, Mount Carmel, Legacy, Endeavor, Hayes Green Elementary, Riverton Elementary, and Harvest are all in progress. Hope to have something a little more solid concrete about next week and ready to get those. We're putting in extra entry doors. We're creating perimeters where we can actually hold parents or students or whoever we need to in a secure, safe area that doesn't allow them to go into the school, but they're in and out of the weather. And so they'll check in there. We're also doing some systems where you're going to use your driver's license and swipe your license. The nice thing about that system is it's called Raptor. When you swipe it, if it pops up anything, pops up custody issue, sex offender, anything, any felony, and automatically we can set up, it'll notify the principal, it'll notify the SRO, and whoever else needs to be notified at that moment, even before the person knows when it swipes that machine. So we have all that place. We're running wide open, trying to make these places safer and more secure. And we've got to go ahead and start with Capital One that's funded and get it put in place. So that's my update of where we are and what we're doing. And I need the rest of that, but I need to keep continuing on with that funding to get this done.
So some of these items are up to $20,000, $30,000.
Yes, sir. Yeah, a few of them are over, about 4 of them are over $20,000. The highest one we have in there is $29,000 at this moment. And but we've got some countywide. We have issues. Not to name any schools, but you're aware of which ones they are, and we need to make them more secure. Those I just already named. We're right on top of that, ready to put it in. We just got to write the contract or the PO. We've got to put it in and make it happen. And
So all that's part of that $750,000, correct?
yes, sir. Every bit of this falls under the funded item number 1 of the capital program. Yes, sir.
Including the Raptor system in
Yes,
all
sir.
our schools.
Is that similar to what they have at, like, the MERT Center in Huntsville? Are you familiar with theirs? You
I'd
have
like
to
to
scan
ask
your...
Craig Hill, because I'm not sure about that answer, but yeah.
Does he know?
It's I believe it's a little bit different. In fact, I'm almost positive because they can advertise it. We've actually used this system. We use it at one school currently. I don't want to go over whose it is, but we already use it at one location and it works very well.
Okay.
And so we're going to put these in, hopefully at every single location, but we're taking the worst scenarios first and putting them in right now.
They really protect their superintendent there. You have to scan, you know, have to do your driver's license to get in.
Yeah, so, and it's a great system. I mean, it really is a great system.
Just saying.
We could probably use one here. But we'll get the schools put in first.
So there's a couple of schools, or probably more than a couple, that aren't on here. How do they fit in?
That's, we just did it by priority, what we recognize as being the most serious issues and everything. That's just where we are right now, but the others are right behind it. We're at every school, we're putting something in everywhere. A few of them actually have a good system. And you're aware of which ones those are also. So there's about 5 or 6 that I think have a great system that we won't do any improvements. And some of them will be just an improvement of adding a Raptor machine or creating a second camera system or a second entry system. But yeah, so those are, the schools that aren't listed here actually have a good, not a great, but a good system in place to not allow parents or other students or visitors into a school. without
So like
being there.
Sparkman's not on here, but that's going to get encompassed in another item.
Yes, but that's the only school that's not, it's because we have a bigger program and it's part of that.
Yeah, it's part of that.
And it's a much bigger job.
Okay. And so even the ones that aren't on here, they're still going to get a piece of the 750,000?
Yes, ma'am, that's my plan. And I've been talking to Mr. Minsky about it. He's, of course, got the safety team together, and that's what some of these funds are for. And it's, and I know we had a current request about doors that are too easy to yank open and pull open because they're older, and it addresses some of those areas. The only people that don't come out at 750,000 are 2 schools, and they're both addressed in the capital plan. That'll get a big cent.
So what are the funding sources for some of the things like with the Raptor or the minor things and some of the $29,000 projects? So how, you know,
Take that out of the capital plan number 1 funding. I'm able to do some of the smaller things immediately out of maintenance money, but Karen will tell you, I'm done just about out of that. And we borrowed money from here to get there.
so the plan is to use some of the BRAC funding to help?
Yes, sir. At this point, we're done. Making sure school safe if we don't use that.
So where is the 750?
We already approved that.
Yeah, we already approved that.
Yeah, you already approved that.
So-
That
So we're spending that
$750,000
money.
was a piece of the BRAC funding that.
No, we didn't agree to where the funding was coming from when we approved it. We had a big argument about that. Came out of executive session and did not.
That is correct, but it's not listed on under the capital plan of where any of the funding is done, but we can draw from our BRAC funding to do those.
You can draw from your reserves, too.
Yeah, well, we'll be drawing from the BRAC funding on this one.
And how do you decide that?
Because that's what it's there for, and they allow it, and y'all funded it. So
No,
I
we
mean,
didn't
that-
fund it from the BRAC funds. We just funded
You don't
it.
fund anything technically from the BRAC funds. I mean, there's nothing that says this is BRAC or this is not BRAC on that capital plan. The whole intention that of the $750,000 was part of the $43 million that we
No,
have in
no,
BRAC
that
to
was
do
not the way you presented it that night. You said we'd decide later how we funded it.
This is how we're deciding how to fund
So
it.
you've decided, but we haven't decided. We're the board.
Well, and we run it, and this is running the system. This is why that BRAC funding is there. This is those. it's
The
for
BRAC
those
funding
capital
is
things.
there to build that high school until you dissolve that agreement. We've been over this over and over. You can do the right thing at the wrong time. You can do the right thing at the wrong time in the wrong way, and it's still wrong.
Sherry, that capital plan got voted 4-1.
That capital plan doesn't dissolve that agreement. That's just your way of spending that money as opposed to that agreement. You
It got
cannot-
funded on a vote of 4-1.
Can we
And we
spend-
can't do these
They
projects
did not-
without
Those
using that.
projects aren't funded under the plan that got approved. They're unfunded.
We haven't made a draw on any of those projects yet, but to complete these items, if we're going to enclose in the Buckhorn main entrance and the storefront attendance entrance, which of the items would we need to draw on the BRAC funds to
Immediately,
big- the attendance at Hazel Green and the,
yes, sir. If Tennyson has green at every one of the bottom 7 schools I have listed on that NCBOE, those 7 also will have to come out of that same money.
But we'll get into this, I guess, as we get down the agenda, but there's reserves sitting there where we could still do that project, just like we could about a month ago. There were reserves there then, there's still the same reserves there now. We don't have to use those BRAC funds. It's
Depends on
unwise.
how we prioritize those reserves with everything that's going on right now.
But you've probably generated CNP reserves this fiscal year.
so whether we use CMP reserves
I'll
to pay for
explain
this.
that. I mean, I can explain it now, but the CNP reserve is a one-time withdrawal because we had over and above the state's requirement. However, they're pulling back now and saying we need at least a 2-month reserve in CNP. And also, this just occurred this year, 1 to 2 months, and we're setting aside those monies for cafeterias and renovations that we may need from the capital plan. So we need to keep what we have in CNP. We were able to pull back the money last summer as a one-time withdrawal. And I explained that in an email this week and when I did a financial update, that was a one-time pull. And those reserves are there, and I was trying to explain how we would be able to pay back our $2 million to the county commission. That's what those reserves were. There's so many things that we might need that reserve for, The only capital monies that we have right now are the BRAC monies and our fleet renewal monies. That's the only capital funds that we have.
So we're required to save $2 million now in the CNP reserve?
They,
2 months worth.
2 months worth.
Or is it $2 million?
that is $2 million.
Okay, 2
1
million.
month is $1 million. From the last report we received from them, they reported on every school system that had a 2-month reserve, and we were one as a positive. As far as putting that in writing, they have not. I have a meeting next week, a conference where they will explain that. But we are over, we have like 800, we have almost a 3-month reserve right now. But the monies we have in there, we need to hold to see about capital, for our capital projects for cafeterias. I know we have 3 on the capital plan.
Okay, but you could go ahead and you could use that money for the $750,000 for safety, and then if the BRAC agreement gets dissolved and we have access to those
That would be
funds,
the board's
then you could
decision.
backfill it.
The board's
I mean, so we're
decision to
not-
do that.
Yeah.
Anything over the 2 month, and again, I'll get clarification on that because that's just the latest report I received.
So there's a way to do it. I mean, if you have.
We
the
have
willpower
access to
do it.
those funds right now. There's no, you know,
So-
working with the APSCA, we can make draws on that right now.
Yeah, but it's
The
not
BRAC aside, we have access to $750,000 that we approved to spend on safety improvements. So BRAC aside, we can start drawing on the CNP reserves if we need to in order to start these safety improvements that we voted on back in February.
Well, right now, it's in the CFP
Got it.
fund. You can't.
What
we
does
would
it
have
take?
to
What
Put
does it-
that in the budget amendment to pull it out.
Right, so, but that's our decision. We don't have to go to the state and ask. We just simply
As
move
long
it
as we
from-
have our 2-month reserve in there.
Right. So we simply move it from the special reserve fund to the general reserve.
In the final
fund. We're
budget
good to go.
amendment in June, we could do that.
Okay.
So we don't need to put I mean, I think you're trying to win a political battle. You're just trying to say, hey, we use the BRAC funds. You don't have to do that. You can resolve that
But it-
BRAC agreement and then use the funds.
But I think we've come up with a solution in order to continue to fund Carrie's projects from here on out until that aspect, until the BRAC issue is settled.
Right, and you can do the same thing for this Hazel Green too. There's enough money, there's $750,000, the Hazel Green's another half a million, I think. We'll get into the numbers later.
But Sherry, you're one of 5 board members. You're not the superintendent and the CFO and can write resolution agreements, okay? I mean, and I get what you're trying to do and why you ran and everything also. But, you know, the high school is not on the capital plan, okay? And you've been on this board for a year and a half.
This is really
as
not
to
about
try
the
to get
high
the
school.
settlement.
This is about principle. This
And
is
I will be
about-
approving later, recommending later to approve the capital plan to start funding all of these other objects. And you
But-
know what? We can wait 2 more weeks, and we
Yeah.
can wait 2 more weeks after that, and we can wait 2 more weeks after that, and then we can be another year and a half, like we are right now, down the road, and we can wait another year and a half.
No, we're not
And-
talking about that, Matt. We're talking about doing
And
things
so-
the right way. If you set a precedence that you're just going to do business however the world you feel like doing it, and you don't do it according to normal business practice, people aren't going to do business
4 to
with
1
you.
was the vote, Sherry.
People aren't going to do business with you. You need to be ethical. You need to settle your agreements.
Let's-
and
But
then
on,
spend
but
the
on
I
this
don't know if you wanna
topic,
go down the
we have
ethical
figured out a way
path.
to give Carrie the $750,000 if needed without touching the BRAC up front. But I think it's time to move on to the next topic.
We would have to do that in the budget amendment.
In June.
In June.
Do
We
we
can
need
do that
to
in
wait,
June.
do we
It's
need to
April, we
stop
got
the
another
safety upgrades?
But you need to do it now, right?
I mean, if we want to,
We're in progress now, is that correct?
And everything with delay, and you'll hear this in a minute about, I am worried about cost, but that's not my driving force here. Driving force here, we're about to get into every event here, getting into, hopefully, we quit raining one day. And you're gonna have all these field days, you have all these parents, that's when, in our spring, in the month of May, there are a ton of visitors and there's a ton of outdoor activities that we do. And to me, I like to have these things in place immediately. I wish we had them in place last month. But to wait, and I'm not by any means thinking what to do, but to wait till June to put them in place, let's just pray that everything keeps going great like it has been, and that nothing changes, but it'd be nice to have them in place today.
Why do you have to wait till June?
I can't pull funds from child nutrition to pay for safety enhancements without approval from the state to pull those monies over into general fund.
And why do we have to wait till June for that?
That's our next budget amendment, and that's when it's approved by the state.
And you can never deviate from that schedule, go off of that schedule? You can't just call them up and say, hey, we want to do this?
No, ma'am. It has to be in a formal budget amendment.
Can you
No,
do
ma'am,
it?
you cannot.
You can't do it any other time but a set time.
No, we can do it at any time, but that's when we prepare our budget amendment in the month of June for all federal programs.
Okay, what if we did it tomorrow instead of in June? Can we do that?
Well, I won't be ready tomorrow.
Well, okay.
And I'll be out of town all next week at a
Well,
conference.
I'm just saying, could it happen besides June?
I mean, could we do it by the next board meeting, which is sometime by the 8th or something?
No, sir, not with all federal programs.
Okay.
You can't do a budget amendment just for child nutrition.
Gotcha.
All federal programs, they already understand, administrators understand, June 3rd is the deadline to have everything into the business office. Then wait, so that we'll have time to check it and to get it to you by June 15th. This stuff just does not happen and fall in your plate. So we can't just approve child nutrition. Now, you know, if the board wants to use local funds until then,
Okay, that's another option.
I don't.
And that won't put us in a bind, because, I mean, we're going to resolve this BRAC agreement eventually. I mean, it's not like it's going on.
We have
and
to
on.
resolve this
Right.
BRAC agreement.
And I think we saw agreement from the commission yesterday that it's agreeable. We just got to do it. So
We've done it.
But
No, we
that's-
haven't. We haven't finished.
We have
That's $2
done.
million
We've done our
from
part.
our reserve.
Right. And so in the meantime, we'll just use general funds to fund this until we can get access to the BRAC funds.
That's the board's decision on how we fund capital projects.
Okay,
Can
so
we amend
that's,
the agenda?
Okay. I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
So thank you for the update, Mr. Wilkerson. Are you ready to move on to
Before-
request? Okay.
So requesting of funding sources, Karen, are there, each of those things a board decision, or is that more of operations in general of how to?
When it comes to the budget, the board approves the budget. And when we amend the budget, the board approves the budget amendment. As far as capital projects, the board approves the capital plan. And right now, the only funds we have in capital monies are the BRAC funds.
Yeah. So basically, it's going to cause a major delay if the board's not willing us to utilize those funds for the safety
Yeah,
upgrades.
could
And if
you
that's
not
what the
just-
board wants to do, we can put a hold on that, and we can wait however long y'all want to wait for the commission to figure it out. The commission had an opportunity to approve our settlement. Yesterday, they did not. They could have called a meeting today and approved it. They could call a meeting tomorrow.
Well, we
and
have
approve
one
it.
next week, next Wednesday, so it's
And
not
and
like
then,
We could-
you know, and I think that was a conversation 2 weeks ago when we met. Hey, let's just hold off and let's let them wait.
Yeah, because
and let's
that's
do
the
that.
right thing to do. That's
The
why we
right
keep-
thing to
that's
do
why we
is
keep
to
having the
put
conversation.
we have the authority to do is to draw these funds to keep our kids safe. That's the right thing to do. The right thing to do for the commission is to say, you know what, y'all do your job, which is what Commissioner Jones said, do your job, keep the kids safe, and they'll figure out their, just because we're using BRAC funds on this, when we know we've got to resolve this, I don't think anybody is going to say that's a misuse of those funds.
I'll say it.
Carrie, of the 750, how much of the 750 do you need today to make those improvements by June, before June?
What I have listed that you're currently looking at.
That's what you need.
Yeah, this is the list that we're in process of. Of course, $150,000, $250,000 is what I need right now. If you will look at the first line item, it's called InDesign. Not the name of the school. It's in your folder. Also, I'll put pictures in the folder just to make things easier. That item, we've got architects working, engineers working, their payments come, and we want to try to bid that immediately. I mean, that project alone will cost $200,000. But if you've been to that school, you understand that it needs that enhancement.
I'm not disagreeing that we need these. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I'm just disagreeing with doing the right thing in the wrong way. That's what I think we're trying to do. And if you do the right thing in the wrong way, it's still wrong.
When was this
So-
approved? In February is when we approved, and we're in April?
So could we go and move 750,000 or whatever it is from the general fund to the capital projects fund and then spend the money out of the capital projects fund?
What we have right now is, it would come from the maintenance budget, which is not budgeted there, until we could,
Until we resolve the agreement and then we can, and then.
until, at the end of the fiscal year, at the end of the year, somehow that was not budgeted. These these school enhancements were not budgeted in the maintenance. And that's where we would have to pay them from right now.
Okay.
If we didn't use the BRAC money.
So we could take the amount of money that's listed here out of the general fund and move it into the maintenance fund at our discretion.
We could pay it from the maintenance budget and then
And
do a budget
reimburse.
amendment.
And the maintenance budget's quite limited on its scope.
It does not have the money in there to do it right
And
now.
I understand Ms. Rucker doesn't want to touch the BRAC money for fear that the sky will fall. I
No,
would
no,
like-
it's not
Mr.
because it's
Madison.
my fault, it's because it's the wrong thing to do.
Mr. Madison, when we approved that $750,000, what was the plan? Where were those funds going to be paid for at that time we approved that amendment?
When was the funds?
What funding stream was it
I
gonna come-
intended to use the BRAC funding for it, but it was nothing on paper that said we won't use BRAC or we will use BRAC.
I think that's some of the issue here. That piece wasn't clear.
But when we funded out on that, we funded up through number 33, and we added them up till it got to 43 million, and we stopped. That $750,000 was part of that 43 million. It was totally designed to come from BRAC to do 750,000 in upgrades.
You go back and look at that conversation that happened before we went into executive session. There was a lot of discussion about that.
No, the discussion was, does that trigger a lawsuit from the commission? That was the discussion. And we're like, you know what? We'll get the attorneys together and we'll talk it out. And we started that in November. After the incident in Florida, we approved this in February. And we're still here in April. The next county commission's in May. I mean,
We didn't
come
send them,
on.
we didn't
And you're
send
talking
them-
about the right thing? That's just offensive, honestly. That's fine if we're gonna not be bold and we're just gonna, keep
Follow
our
the
fingers
law.
crossed and be beholden to a bad deal. And we're gonna do it at the cost of safety issues that we're just gonna put off.
We're
You
not-
know what? We're just gonna put it off a couple more weeks.
Matt, we're not talking about putting it off.
We
We're
put it
talking
off
about- We're
since
talking
February.
about
We
moving
put it
the
off
funds.
since November.
We're talking about moving the funds.
And if the whole board wants to do that, that's fine. You've made your opinion known. And if you guys don't want us to use the BRAC funding for it, that's what it was approved. That $750,000 was part of that cumulative addition to get to the 43 million. If y'all do not want us to do that, you need to let me know. And we'll unfund the safety items.
No, you'll
Well-
fund it a
We
different way.
voted to fund the safety items, the
Yeah.
$750,000. That is done.
And
That is priority one. We have to do that. I don't care where it comes from.
I care where it
has
comes
to be
from, but I
done.
think we have to
We
do it.
Well, I
figured
mean-
if we started, by the time we got down to paying it, this thing would be resolved. And yet, alas, here we are.
So we could take it out, I just talked with Karen, we can take it out of the operation and maintenance. It's not budgeted, but we could do it as long as we agree to pay it back at some point down the road. If we have to meet tomorrow to amend that and to do it, then we need to do it. What I'm saying is the money's there without touching BRAC, but we can still do it.
Exactly.
Why
Right.
do we not want to touch the BRAC
Why
funds?
do you have to do it that way?
Because that's what it's there for.
No,
Let's
it's
look at how we can do this and then when we get to that discussion, then we can have that discussion.
All right. We'll go to request to address the board, and we may have some folks that are not here yet. Ms. Bates, do you want to kind of lead us through this? part
Yeah,
of it?
so we do have several people who asked to address the board. Some of those people did make note that they may or may not be able to get here at an early time, since we were starting the board meeting about 45 minutes early. So what we agreed to do is allow those to speak who are here, and then at 6 o'clock, we'll stop again and see if anyone has arrived who was not here at the time that we started the discussion. As y'all are probably aware, all comments will be limited to 5 minutes so that everyone who wishes to address the board will be given an equal opportunity. In the event you wish to address the board on an issue involving the general reputation and character, physical condition, professional competence, mental health, or in some instances, job performance of an employee, the board will hear your comments in executive session. If you are unsure whether your comments should be made in executive session, please see the board attorney, Ms. Cynthia Thompson. And so our first request came from Mr. Alan Passor.
I will work out the next one.
Okay. Would you like us to come back to you at 6 o'clock or no?
No.
Okay. Marty Connor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm here representing the Sparkman High School football team. Basically, and per the discussions I've heard here, it may be a premature thing for me to come forward and even talk about it and everything, but there have been some discussions about maybe getting some funds to put turf on the field and help, again, improve the game. Again, we've got one regulated size field there, and it seems to change quite a bit. And everything, we get a lot of revenue from that field, not only us, but also the soccer team. When the fields, we have bad weather, we lose revenue on that field, and everything we could use to carry forward for our student athletes. And everything, we spend roughly about $25,000 a year maintaining that field. And everything, again, that's funds that we can use in other places. Again, to support student athletes and everything. I believe we're one of the largest, or maybe the largest high school in the county and everything, but yet it seems that we seem to get picked over sometimes. We seem to be missed and everything, especially with the athletic fields and everything. I've been in the community for 18 years. I've had kids going there now. I've got one there now and everything. I think we've been there for about 10 years and everything. I haven't seen any improvements to this field. Everything. We need it to boost the morale of the kids. We've got the coach in there to move us forward and everything, and if we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards. And I feel like we're taking steps backwards. Everything. So again, there's a lot to go. I know that you guys have got a lot going on and everything, and again, it may be premature for me coming in and even talking about this now. I just wanted to, again, have a voice from the Sparkman High School football team and say, hey, we'd like to have that. We'd like to have the funds. We'd like to look at that and move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
Ava Caldwell?
Hi, my name is Ava Caldwell. I am in District 2. My son goes to Riverton Elementary. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me talk specifically about the safety concerns and the money that's being planned to be spent. We had a town hall for District 2 and discussed the safety concerns that parents had and the money that's been set aside for those to increase safety in our schools. We understand that there is a committee and a group of parents and some professionals that have some background in safety that have met to try to help make improvements in our schools. We find that to be an important part of the process for parents to be involved in a committee and for people who have, some background at least in safety precautions to come together and discuss. But when we're talking about, 19,000 kids in 26 schools or so, and 750,000, and we have something on the table for an actual consultant who does this for a living to provide us an overall safety plan for that many people. We think that would be a really good consideration for the board. Let's see here. We think that's the best option because we have dedicated time and expertise when you're talking about, so it's not somebody who might have information about one topic, but not necessarily in the context of an entire school system, and what the priority should be in terms of how we start spending those funds. We hear, oh, it's going to cost a couple $100,000 for this, $100,000 for this. A consultant looks at the entire thing and says, what do the priorities need to be across the board? It's an expert. That's also an unbiased reviewer, not a parent who's sitting on a committee in terms of if I'm sitting on a committee, I'm not saying I wouldn't try to be unbiased, but if my kid's in a particular school and we're trying to make a decision between which of the 26 schools are going to get funds for something, I might tend to be more biased for that because I don't have a better frame of reference because I'm not an expert. I also feel like they're more, they are contracted by you all to do a job. Right now you have some committee members who have their own jobs that are trying to come together once every couple of weeks and make a determination for 19,000 kids in 26 schools. I'm not particularly comfortable with that as a parent because they're not really contractually required to do anything for you all. Whereas I know that the consultant was going to be $80,000 out of $750 that we have so far to give us a complete, all the way around look at the safety of our schools, not just saying, okay, we think we need this, we think we need this. I'm not particularly comfortable with coming at it in that direction. And it's not disrespect to any of the administrators or people that are on that committee. I'm sure they have everybody's best interest at heart. I simply want to think we should look at this from an overall perspective from experts. I appreciate your time.
Karen Lynn Parker.
Hey, Ms. Parker, if you'll come on up to our nice podium up here, that way our YouTubers can listen to you also.
Are you afraid I cannot project in a room?
No, I heard you project yesterday, yes.
All right. My name is Karen Lynn Parker. Our 3 girls attend 3 schools of the Sparkman family. I'm a degreed music educator. I've been involved with community choruses, children ensembles, and theater, and I have taught elementary music in the classroom and had a private studio. I will give you a little bit of my background so that you understand that my comments are influenced by my experiences as a student, a performer, a music teacher, an accompanist, a costumer, a patron of the arts, and now as a mom who is supporting the next generation of fine artists. Attending yesterday's joint session was enlightening regarding our very bleak financial situation in this county. I have a better understanding of how we have some who will not back down from the idea of building a new high school despite the needs for the repairs that we have, plus completing campuses that have not been finished yet. MES has had roof leaks for 3 years, rendering a portion of their building unusable. I propose that we use our current funding to fix and finish the schools that we have that need repair and renovation while simultaneously seeking new revenue streams. Too often, fine arts is treated as an afterthought. Even on the proposed Monrovia High School plans, performing arts is noted as future expansion. I struggle to understand why we are leaving schools unfinished or in disrepair while focusing attentions to build a new and incomplete high school. Fine arts education is not just the teaching of notes and performances. Music is learning a foreign language. Music is mathematics. I have had the privilege of observing young elementary students have that aha moment when they're actually doing algebraic expressions in a measure of music. Music also teaches memorization skills. Music is kinesthetic. Music teaches multitasking. Fine arts brings all of these disciplines together simultaneously. We recently attended the Sleeping Beauty production at the 9th Grade Academy. The kids performed well. The show was very entertaining and appropriate. I was saddened, however, that the stage is very small, and even sitting just a few rows back, it was very difficult to see the action that was on the stage because, frankly, a cafeteria is not a theater. Our fine arts teachers are entrusted with our students to teach them music, drama, visual arts, and so much more. I would like our board to trust our teachers and ask them how they can best support the goals at Sparkman High and in the Monrovia area. It is my understanding that our middle school and high school band directors have not been asked recently, if ever, for specific input on how the board can be a support to their programs. Would dividing Sparkman into 2 incomplete campuses be beneficial? Should we continue to rent the Von Braun Center at $20,000 per production? Can the board work with our commission to utilize the funds to construct a proper fine arts complex where we can enhance learning for all students in the Monrovia area? Could we model a fine arts program like Siegel High in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, that offers private lessons to students in their community to generate income through lesson fees? Having fine arts facilities opens the door for other forms of revenue besides lesson fees. It could also add revenue from facility, studio rental, hosting events, and costume rentals as well. I've spent many days up at the Sparkman High assisting the band this year. I'm glad to see many of the kids here. I was not crowded in the hall as students were changing classes. I have not struggled to find a parking spot when I've gone up there. It should be noted, however, that our band room and our storage space is completely inadequate for even an average-sized high school band. The kids do not have lockers for their instruments, their cases, or their book bags, and that has resulted in theft. Our percussionists have no storage for their equipment. It sits in the middle of our band room. Instrumentalists and vocalists do not have places where they can warm up or practice. Music educators are well known for creating greatness from very meager resources and limited time. We've observed this in our elementary music, bucket drumming, and choir at MES. Our middle school bands are amazing and must use a gym twice a year to perform a concert. The directors at Sparkman will endure the heat of Alabama summers to choreograph a championship band on a practice field that's not even comparable in size to the football field where they perform. And then they come in and they perform outstanding concerts in the December and in the spring again in a gymnasium. I would like to request that the baseball team compete on a basketball court. Please ask our music department for what you can do to help them and how you can best support them.
Bill Rice.
Good evening. My name is Bill Rice, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you tonight about Sparkman High School. For the past 7 years, I've been a parent of Sparkman students, and when my son graduates Monrovia Middle next week or next month, I'll have 4 more years spending time up at the high school. So, in the time I've been at Sparkman, I've actually supported numerous education academic programs for my daughters, been a member of the sports booster clubs, and now I'm on the executive board for the Sparkman Band Booster Club. And we travel all over the state, our surrounding around the state of Alabama and our surrounding states, and continually amazed by the level of facilities that our competition has to work with on an everyday basis. In our own area, James Clemens and Gadsden City High School are no more than 12 years old, and if you look at the amenities that their students have at their disposal, it's just incredible what we could do if we had the same stuff. Huntsville City and Madison City schools have gone through extensive renovation programs for Huntsville High School, as well as Bob Jones High School. And the renovations they have provided to provide their students new opportunities that far outweigh what we have at Sparkman High School. Our Sparkman students deserve better. For far too long, they've done more with less, and I'm amazed at how well they perform with what they've got. I know there are parents here from other organizations at Sparkman tonight, the football team, so I'm not going to reiterate or jump on the bandwagon for those issues. I'm going to talk about the band. This is a program that every time they step onto the field, wherever they're at and whenever they do, they win. And they represent the class. They represent Sparkman High School and Madison County School with class and with honor. Our band department, led by Mr. Dave Rainey, who's in the back, does a tremendous job instilling commitment, self-respect, and leadership for the students of our band program. Every year, the band graduates 50-plus kids, and to the T, every one of them seems like they're going to college and they're doing great things in the future. And I believe this is in no short part the fact that we have great leaders in our band program. By the way, and I know Mr. Weiss had mentioned this earlier, the band wins. Okay, just this past week, we were up at Dayton, Ohio for the WGCI World Championships and came in 4th. That finishes up a 3-year run where 2 years ago we won a World Championship. The marching band in the fall, they win all over the state and in the region. If you don't believe me, go to the band room and look at the number of trophies that line the wall. The current Sparkman campus is approaching 20 years of age, and for Madison County School Board to use a portion of the 5-year capital plan to upgrade Sparkman, and particularly the performing arts, would be a tremendous service to this community. The sheer number of students that are participating in the band department now is causing the rooms to literally crumble and burst at the seams. There's cracks in the cinder block walls. Some walls have been reinforced. So there's things that they can be done to the facility, the structure, to help make it a safer place and also expand the facility, provide them greater opportunities. And as the gentleman from the football team mentioned earlier, the opportunity to put out an artificial turf field would tremendously help our program as well, because we have a practice facility which we spend over $40,000 a year to maintain. and it's not even a regulation size what we use to march on. So that's money that we can directly reinvest back in as band boosters into the band itself, either reducing costs or buying more equipment for the students to use. As a Sparkman parent, I'd ask you to remain steadfast in your financial commitment to the band and Sparkman High School. We don't need a new school. We need to upgrade what we have. We need our facilities to evolve just like our students evolved over the time that Sparkman has been there. Thank you for your time.
Jerry O'Neill.
Good evening and thank you. Board members, my name is Jerry O'Neill. I stand before you today a concerned parent, a youth minister, and a very involved community leader. I serve as youth minister of Cove Baptist Church. I am a local real estate broker. I serve on multiple boards, including the Care Center, which is a local nonprofit serving our children in the New Hope, Owens Crossroads, and Madison County Schools District. Many additional programs and staff in our schools are funded by the Care Center. I stand today very concerned with recent activity concerning the passing of the capital budget plan by the Madison County School Board. I've attended and tried to educate myself on any confusion created by the relationship of past years by the Madison County School Board and Madison County Commission. I want to believe that all voted members of the boards want to serve in the best interest of all citizens. I am also not blind to the fact that is not always the case. I've heard you along with other concerned parents in multiple meetings express of the conditions of leaky roofs, mold, other aged building problems that were potentially creating health hazards throughout the county. I'm a graduate of New Hope High School and very proud of that. I have one son in New Hope Elementary and I have another son and a daughter in New Hope High School. For years I've struggled with the fact that I feel many times both Owens Crossroads Elementary and New Hope schools have been last in line when it was time to fund schools. I mentioned earlier that I'm a real estate broker. I currently manage one of the largest growing independent firms in the state of Alabama with about 5 offices and 170 agents. We've studied continually the development and growth in North Alabama. We know growth is happening. We also have seen your presentation in multiple meetings that says there is still room in current facilities in Sparkman and other schools. That all being said, I have listened to your presentation. We have heard your facts, and I agree that you're in a tough situation. And I thank you for all that you do. I know there's not enough money to do everything we probably need to do. I agree that it looks as though the school board's financial situation for years to come is a sad subject. I want to believe that this board is sincerely seeking the best interest of our children throughout the county, not in just one district. I know that the previous board helped agree to the current situation you're facing from an agreement made with the county commission. I know that the county commission is trying to force this board to make a decision that appears hard to make. And factually, I don't think we can afford to commit and complete. I was taught as a child, I teach my children and youth group of about 50 kids that we must keep our word. Matthew 5:37. I was also taught, and I teach today, that when you cannot fulfill your promise, you should go to the other party, explain yourself, ask forgiveness, and reason together. Isaiah 1:18. I was present yesterday at the joint meeting where I witnessed the Madison County School Board members saying, "I'm sorry. We can't afford to keep the previous board's commitment. We can't sacrifice all the other current needs of the children throughout Madison County." You said, board, you said, please forgive us and accept our reasoning together of $2 million in a check to be handed to the commission. Sometimes when you go to the other party and they won't hear you or your reason, you then must accept that you have done all that you know to do. We can't give up BRAC funding for the sake of some members of the Madison County Commission's personal agenda or personal items. I speak my opinion today of what I have witnessed and what I believe. I ask that this school board vote tonight and pass this current capital plan presented so that as a people who love our children, we can move forward with the progress for not just a few, but many. And then I ask that the board diligently begin seeking and planning for accommodation for future growth, because it is happening. Thank you for all that you do.
Okay, we'll go to administrative actions. Thank you, everybody that's here and those that spoke and put the time and effort with that. First recommendation will be of a settlement resolution with the Madison County Commission, asking for a settlement with a $2 million one-time payment. Cindy has drafted a copy of the resolution. I'm not sure if
It's
you want to read
actually
it.
a proposed agreement.
Or proposed agreement, I'm sorry, yes.
That I handed out a copy of yesterday.
Okay.
So you would be asking that you would be recommending that the board
Approval of the settlement agreement.
approve
Yeah.
the settlement agreement and instruct me to make the offer to
There
the
you go.
attorney for the commission.
So it'll be and there's 10 points to this settlement agreement.
Does everybody have a
Does
copy?
anybody want another copy? I know we got one yesterday.
I didn't get
Okay.
This is
Nathan,
a
did you
hard
get a
copy.
copy?
I got the online version.
Gotcha.
So this
It's the
is
same
pretty
document I
much what we
handed you
talked about.
yesterday.
It's just.
Yes, it's just in format that you would have in the settlement agreement.
Do we need to put the, item number 6? I see Mr. Massey's on there. What about the previous superintendent? Do we need to include Mr. Copeland?
You could, I was not aware of any threats made towards his name.
Okay.
But you could include that if you would like.
Well, I mean, you have the previous 3 board members that are no longer
That is
sitting here,
correct.
so it
Right.
probably would stand to
Okay.
reason to include the previous superintendent as well.
I'd be happy to add that name.
So get a motion in a second.
Do we need to put anything about the fact that if, I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but that, I don't want to put a deadline on it, but that at some point this offer is void? I mean, if it's a year from now and they haven't voted on it, is there?
Well, you could put that, you can put terms on the instructions that you give me as a board.
Okay.
And what I'm supposed to say to their council.
Some,
when I
the other
present
one
them.
we did in November, and we didn't hear anything until we asked again in March, so I don't,
Yeah, there was never a response in November.
correct, or December, it's January.
We only put our offer in writing like March 20th.
We had a meeting in the end of November.
When did we put it in writing?
I've sent a letter in March
Okay,
at their
okay.
request,
Okay,
but we
so-
made several oral offers and had multiple meetings where the offers were made.
Our first written offer was in March, so it's not like, I mean, it's been presented one way, but it really wasn't.
We were making offers because they weren't engaging in conversations.
I don't think the previous is, what I want to know is, are we going to put parameters around this one so that we will not be
Waiting.
waiting an inordinate amount of time for a reply?
And can we do that? Can we
Can
put?
we have
You
that?
can, you can.
And keep in mind, the reply at first was that they would refuse to reply, so that makes it
That's because we just
difficult.
sent it March 20th, so we were trying to get them to reply like instantly. They didn't even
I
meet again.
disagree.
Well, I disagree.
I mean-
Edward will continue to disagree.
Well, and I don't think all of the commissioners saw the offer that we made,
Yeah, I mean, some of them indicated that, so.
but I mean, that's not our fault.
Well, no, but it illustrates the point that it was a rush deal, so.
We presented it to them on the 20th of March, and they took it up at their last meeting on the 16th or 17th of April. I don't see that to be a rush deal.
Well, the Commissioner Hill was the one, he said, well, I could have brought it up. Well, he didn't. I mean, I can't explain
It wasn't
that.
rushed on our part, though.
Well, the object of my suggestion to put a time parameter on it was not so that we could argue whether or not the commission was appropriate last time. The object was to make sure that this time we have parameters that allow us the opportunity to have a decision in a timely manner.
So Cindy, what you're
Agreed.
saying is that timeliness doesn't have to be in this agreement. You can set those parameters orally.
Yes, yes. That would be what you would typically do.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
And so our point in doing this is because we simply cannot build at high school, so we just need out of agreement. Yes?
I believe that's what we stated yesterday as well, is that we were unable to financially move forward with building Sparkman High School, and that we...
Monrovia.
I'm sorry. Monrovia.
Which is true, we can't, so we have to get out of it.
Correct.
Yes.
And so we're approving this with adding Dr. Copeland's name, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And there was one other, no, that's
The other instructions you'll be giving me
given
on what to
to,
say
okay.
to Mr. Rich.
Is there any other discussion or question?
If I'm not mistaken, yesterday we were told that this, that if we sent them an agreement, it would be on the agenda. Is that correct? Is that your understanding?
That is not what I heard them say. I can't imagine them. The last time it got added, it was because a
I know.
unanimous thing. So I don't know if, how things get added to the commission agenda, if the chairman sets the agenda, or if a commissioner can request for an item to be on there.
Am I wrong,
It has to be
Roger?
unanimous.
Did they say that?
I can have something put on the agenda, I'd be glad to do it.
Okay, thank you.
So your meeting, Commissioner Jones, is on the 2nd of May.
Yes.
So do we need to change the date here? The board will repay the $2 million the county has paid on or before May 1st. Do we need to amend that to their meeting date or after their meeting date?
I would like-
The reason that we use the May 1st date is because that's the day
The next
payment
payment's due.
is due.
But
Yes.
if they aren't going to look at this until after that date, it would stand to reason that we need to change that date. I don't know how we.
We can just hold their check. I mean, if they
Yeah, we can
honor their
just-
side
yeah.
of the agreement, just hand them back their check when we hand them this check.
Yeah.
Your offer's to repay it by May 1st. They could choose to call a special meeting and accept it
That's true.
before then,
That's
so
true.
I would just
Leave it as May 1st.
Because
Okay.
it's clean with the terms of the original agreement.
Okay, that's fine.
I wouldn't leave it that way. I'd change it. Well, that doesn't even make sense if they don't meet until May 1st.
The point was they could call a special session if they so desired in order to accept it prior to May 1st.
Well, why can't we set it after, take their check, because they'll probably send it to us, and then just hand them back their check? We wouldn't have cashed it.
I'm fine with May 1st to give them the option to meet earlier if so moved.
And that's not a deadline.
Yeah.
May 1st is not a deadline.
You
It's just a-
offered to make the payment yesterday.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
and it says on it.
What if they don't do anything with it by May 1st? Then our offer's void, right?
No.
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 Your offer is to make the payment by May 1st.
We won't be able to do that if they don't respond to the agreement.
We'll have the money available to pay it on May 1st, whether they respond to the agreement or not. We had the-
It says we're gonna repay it. We won't be able to do that if they don't agree to accept it before May 1st.
Okay, we could say the board will make available the $2 million. I mean, we have the check. So we could say the board will make available
No.
the $2 million.
It needs to say you will repay it.
Okay,
Now, if-
that's fine.
If this is a
That's
point of
fine.
contention, I would change the date.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's no problem if they go ahead and send us another check, is it? I mean, you just give it back to them.
I'm good with 1 May, but
What date would you, as a board, would you like for me to put in the proposed agreement?
When's the day of the meeting?
May 2nd.
Yeah, so sometime after the 2nd. Oh, no, wait, let's see.
Well, I'm willing to be at the meeting at the 2nd, hand you the check if you agree. If that's how.
I gladly accept it.
Thank you, sir.
Do you want me to put the 2nd or the 3rd?
One of those. I mean,
I'm okay with the 2nd. 2nd's fine.
second's
Is
fine.
everyone in agreement? Okay.
Is it appropriate to ask what the board will do if the commission doesn't accept this? The next steps?
No, you just wait till that
I think
happens.
that would be a discussion we would have at
Yeah.
a later time, very similar to the half cent. It's something we would need to have the opportunity to review.
Okay.
I think it's a what if. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I recommend approval of the financial statements, payments of bills, and cash reports for February 2018.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I recommend approval of the following bids as attached.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion concerning the bids?
I had a question on the plumbing. Is that just something we do every year, just to set out what we think we're gonna buy and just get a price for whatever we need? Or is that, how's it work?
Yes, ma'am. Karen's office does a great job. They review along with us what items we buy, what we buy the most of.
Mhm.
And so we put it out as, not generic, but basically we know we're going to buy more seals or more valves or whatever. So we let that weigh according to how much we buy to try to build a good price line of what we purchase. And there's a lot of things that aren't on there that we might buy one time a year. But that's how we come up with our list of what we're doing.
And you, so you do that every, it's kind of a routine thing, every year you do that?
We bid it every year, and then sometimes we have 1 year renewals every 3 years total.
Can be up to 5 now,
That's 5 years, so.
but we review it every year.
Right.
And so you can buy any quantity of that, and we might, does that come before the, when you actually buy it, does it come back to the board, or does it depend on how much it is?
Though, when you approve this bid, you approve us to buy them as we need them. And this is all general maintenance. This isn't, when we do a construction project to a contractor, that's independent of what you see here.
Okay.
These are just maintenance items.
And then I had a question on the CMP. I don't know who you guys got to. So we're gonna buy some stuff for the CMP. So is that like because we replace those things just on a schedule, or is it because those things aren't working anymore? Or?
Typically, it's because they're not working anymore. We use them until they're not working anymore. Do you have a specific
No, it's just
item
kind of a
that-
general, you know.
No, in their budget, annually,
Mhm.
they prioritize what is needed because it's about to go out, or it's
Mhm.
already gone out, and then we try to do the bids in the spring so that we can replace those items in the summer.
Okay.
And the, Terry Campbell is the maintenance supervisor over CMP, and he works closely with Ms. Houchwick on prioritizing what is going out and what will be needed. They're not on a rotation.
Okay. So what happens to the old stuff?
Well, if it can be sold on gov.deals, we do that. If it's obsolete and we sell it for scrap. But we use it until it can no longer be used. We have nothing on a rotation basis with the child nutrition department.
Mr. Cumber does a very good job evaluating equipment throughout the year.
Mhm.
And he was, and obviously today, talking about 40 tons of replacing this summer. And he'll research it. A lot of things, or some of the things he replaced, will be the top item. It's just newer and better than some of the 10 or 15-year-old equipment. And he does a really good job of checking it out, researching it, purchasing it.
And the items that are up for bid approval are those items that were mentioned in the budget hearing that we're going to have to do this school year.
Right.
Unless we added something in January when we did our first budget amendment.
So when you take the equipment out and you do something with it, does the board ever know what happened to the equipment?
We don't bring before the board any dispositions any longer because it's obsolete. It is not something we bring to the board for approval.
Here, you do get a sheet documenting what was sold,
Yes,
what the
sir.
price was taken off the list.
We have the documentation, but it's not brought to the board for approval unless, if we had something that was valuable and we bid for the highest bidder, that would come to the board.
To sell it to the highest bidder?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I haven't seen that since I've been on the board.
We haven't
so,
had
okay.
anything. Again, we use it until it can no longer be used.
So you anticipate just pretty much sending this to the dump, the stuff.
I'm not sure about these particular items in the shape they're in. Mr. Campbell and Mr. Evans could take a look at those, but we get maybe $300 on GovDot deals.
4 stainless trash cans in Sparkman High School no longer wanted for $230.
That's the kind of price we're getting, but we get a little bit, and it's pretty much the same as sell a scrap. And we have a line item in the financials for sell a scrap that we can provide the detail at any time for what that is. And we also, during the audit, anything that's sold, any equipment items, goes before the examiners and they approve, they look at it and review it and do a gain or loss entry on that. But we don't have, since you've been on the board, and I can't remember the last time we had anything of value that we brought before the board to sell. Might have been some sale of school buses, maybe.
Some buses.
We've seen that.
Vehicles, I think.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, the drops that you were having pulled, that 70%, is that part of that 240, that 70% paid for by E-rate?
What we're trying to do is leverage E-rate, because E-rate is federal dollars. And our district, we pay, and it's based on child nutrition, we pay 30 cents on the dollar. So what we're trying to do is leverage our drops for our safety improvement, our intercom speakers throughout the district, future access points we need to add, and replace some cabling that is 25 years old. So I was able this year to try to bundle it together, so thus we would pay 30 cents on the dollar for any of that we had done over the next year. And it's all based on E-rate funding.
So the classroom drops versus the voice over IP speaker drops, the variation between the cost per drop is about $10 or give or take a little.
Yep.
Is it, you got $797, then you got one at $800 plus or minus?
The reason that is that the speaker drops are basically just down the hall. We're not doing those in classroom. So they're a little easier to pull for them. And what we're doing on the classroom drops is basically every other classroom is all we're going to be able to wire. But what that would allow us to do is then come back with additional E-rate money, which we will be privy to that too, that will put an access point in every room. A lot of our schools now have access points in every other room. And we have over 35,000 devices on the network, and we simply don't have enough coverage the way it stands now. So I basically have $1.5 million in 2 years I can use with E-rate money, and we'll pay 30 cents on the dollar. I couldn't get it all this year, and even this $1 million that I'm going to try to go for this year, I still may not have enough funding remaining to do that, but then I can tack it on next year. But then after that, the E-rate schedule will reset again, and then we should be able to get $150, if it goes the way it is now, $150 per kid to spend over a 5-year lifespan.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. I recommend approval to the extended day fee schedule as attached.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the revision of the high school final exam exemption procedures.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to see us revisit this. I say we give it a try for a year and we keep very good documentation on if this really improves attendance in students. We've got some students here, if they're still here, maybe they've gone to sleep. But do y'all think that that would improve attendance if you didn't miss many days and your GPA was good in a class? Okay. All right. I consider y'all the experts, so, but I do think we need to look at it. We don't just need to, we need to see some data on this as we come back. But I'm not opposed to it.
Mr. Master, do you foresee attendance being a steady marker in the report card going
Yes.
forward.
I disagree. I don't want to do that. I respectfully disagree. But,
It's okay, you don't have to be respectful.
Because I just, there's lots of reasons, but one is you're going to encourage kids to come to school sick. I mean, they can't miss but 3 days. So we're going to fill our schools with people who should be home, and the people that are well are going to get sick, the staff's going to get sick. I just think it's a flawed idea to say, hey, come to school no matter what, because you're going to get out of your exam. We're going to have I mean, that's just not logical to me. And so that's one reason.
And I was going to say, I was going to take on, I think it's flawed that we're required to report the absences like that. I think that is a ridiculous requirement that the state has levied upon us for the report card. But
Right.
go ahead. I'm sorry, Sherry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But I think principals really think this would help them, right?
Yeah, and, because to me, the exemption policy right now is not extremely equitable. If you take an AP class, you're exempt from your final exam because you're going through and studying for a very rigorous exam, but we won't get the grades back until July. The students who are not taking AP classes do not have a path to not take an exam that covers 20% of their overall grade. This does not mean that teachers are forbidden to give a comprehensive test. We encourage teachers to give comprehensive tests. I have kind of my own if I could just make an exam policy, it would probably be a little bit different than this, but the idea of there being a 20% weight on one test on one day, when we like to kind of talk about how, hey, it's more than just a test on one day. I think giving students who aren't in AP classes a path to be exempt from those exams is a positive thing. And I think students will appreciate it. And on those days where, obviously if somebody's got the flu, we don't want them coming. But on days where they might want to, rearrange that doctor's appointment so they don't miss that science class fourth block, that's a good thing. So I think that this gives a positive reason to be in class, and it does matter for students. When I was a teacher, I had students come to check with me going, hey, I've only missed one day, right? They knew what days they missed, and they made sure I had track of it. It will matter. The one thing about attendance is the reason that it is counted in the state report card, and it's not an overall attendance, but it's for chronically absent students, is if students are chronically absent, it's a risk factor of having other issues going on. I knew one student who missed 85 days his 5th grade year. 50 of them, he had doctor's excuses. Just because they have an excuse, and sometimes there's issues if a kid does have a chronic illness or something, that the principal is aware of that. We're going to have chronic absences. I don't necessarily like it being part of the report card. I think it's okay to report, but it's something we've been trying to tackle now for about the last year and a half, and that's what our social workers have done a great job with.
And we should. I just don't agree. I just don't think that it needs to be a part of a statewide report card because it doesn't really have a whole lot of bearing. It's not a quantifiable thing to report.
And I guess as part of the update, the state superintendent guides that kind of what's on the report card. The law just says, give us a report card, and we want it to be an A, B, C, D, or F. We put some letters on it. So we do have a new state superintendent, or we will be starting one, and that's Dr. Eric Mackey.
I think if they could clarify that, and it'd be the nature of the absences
Yeah.
would be more important and less about the absence itself, because you're right, if a kid is sick and they have a legitimate doctor's excuse, I think that should be excused and not counted against them. If you have a chronically absent, unexcused child, then that is a marker that needs to be identified. But they blanket all those into one, and that's unfair to be judged on that from a reporting standpoint.
Yeah. But it will probably be equally unfair to every school in the state. So
Sure,
I would say
sure.
those documents are easy to get the doctor's note and that kind of thing. I'm okay with it counting doctor's absences. I do wish the 18 is what's considered chronically absent. I think for flu season and things like that, I'm going to allow you that they extend it to a little bit more. But what it does, even if there's a kid that's missing a lot of days and it's a doctor notes, we want to check on them with our social workers and make sure, see if there's any other supports we can give them on that. So,
Well, what about going the other extreme? Because your rationale is the AP kids. What if you put a test in for them? They've already studied for it, just give them a test.
I gave mine a test. I mean, they can still give a comprehensive test, but what's happening in that the kids that are taking those AP exams, it's 2 weeks of exams, and so the exams take 4 hours, and so the whole class schedule is just thrown so out of whack. After the first week in May, their schedule, they're in and out of their classes so much, and they may not, chemistry is usually one of the first ones, they may not meet for that chemistry class for 7 straight days. And so you just crammed and prepped for an exam, so giving another exam on an exam day to count 20%, that's what the board, the system felt like, hey, we need to.
So they're not there because they're taking AP exams in other subjects?
Yes.
Okay.
Or the teachers, AP teachers, after your test is given, they're proctoring the other exams, because you can't proctor your own exam. A science teacher can't proctor any science exam. So the chemistry teacher can't even proctor the biology exam.
So after they take their AP exam, they're pretty much done. There's not instructional value.
With that, they're usually not meeting in that class and instruction being given because either those teachers are proctoring other exams or those students are taking other exams. So like at Sparkman, they're administering over 1,300 exams over 2 weeks. And so with those AP exams, you gotta have 2 teachers per room, and there's all kind of things there. And they usually displace students on the AP kind of classrooms there. So it causes a big disruption in the schedule, so it's hard to have, there's not a whole lot of instruction going on after the AP exam's administered. If there is anything, it's usually, so I used to do some enrichment lessons or an extra lab if you're a science teacher, things like that. Generally now we found the best strategy with our AP teachers is you finish instruction by February or March and then take that time to review and reteach and find areas that you need to improve in. So,
2 other points is, so, I mean, if pretending I'm a student and I'm deciding to take an AP class or a normal class, and so if I know I can get out of the exam by taking the normal class, I might just take it.
Well,
you may be encouraging people that might take an AP class to not take one.
Nobody's taking an AP class to avoid taking a comprehensive final.
No, but they would if you change this policy. They would not take the AP class to avoid taking a comprehensive final.
Yeah, you think they would be willing to, if they can be present, be exempt, they wouldn't take that AP class. I hope they're not using that as a reason to
I
take
just think
AP
back to my
classes,
days
so.
in school, I might have chosen that path because they're hard.
It is hard. Yeah.
But they're getting extra points for
Yeah.
taking an AP exam and, taking an AP course added on to their, whatever their grade point, their
They have a lot of
average.
work. I mean, it's not just the points they get, it's the work.
But I
they
mean,
have.
that's an incentive for
Right.
them, though, if for students who are worried about their GPA, they know that AP course, even if they make a B in there, they're gonna get points added to it, which is, it's.
That's not really what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm sitting here am I gonna take my normal English class or am I gonna take my AP class? Well, I'm gonna work really hard in my AP class because it's a demanding class, and I'm gonna have to take that AP exam because you have to take it if you take the class. Or let's just take the normal class. If I'm not absent, I don't even have to take a final exam. I'm going to go the easy route. And so I think we may be encouraging people.
Your mama's not going to let you do that.
I mean, I can only speak. I can only speak for my son when he did it. But I mean, he wanted to take the AP classes. He wanted to take that challenge. Right. He wanted to be challenged in that class because he knew it was going on. So.
But we're also drilling down
Yeah.
to very specialized, okay, so yes, maybe 4 kids would do that. Maybe there are some, but what we're trying to do here is to pass a policy that allows for the majority of students to have incentive. And our goal as a board is to do what's best and equitable for the majority of the students, not to try to pass policy that keeps every single child from ever working the system.
Yeah, but let's think about how many chronically absent kids we have.
Well, our chronically absent kids are not going to benefit from this policy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's right now, I think, 11, where's Ms. Stovall, 11% of our population. So the other 89% are going to be able to benefit from this.
The whole reason for the policy is to address the chronic absenteeism. So if none of the chronically absent people are going to be changed by this policy, then the whole premise is.
Which is why we will review it in a year, because you don't know that it won't work.
Attendance is part of the state effort to improve attendance across the board. So we want to do more than just improve attendance of our chronically absent students. Our chronically absent students need some kind of intervention that involves a social worker. But there's a lot of students that miss 5 or 6 days, and if they're kind of tired one day, they may take off another day. Well, now if there's an incentive at the beginning of the year, but you're right, this is not going to, if a kid's missing 30 days a year, they're probably not going to be able to make 3. Now, if a couple of them have, and we'll give them a gold star and an exemption on the exam. Now that, say, if you want to bring up the AP thing, we presented, I think it was this board a year ago, where, we had a student that presented, that talked about how he's taking AP chemistry and busting his tail, and he's got a C, and his buddy's taking environmental science and got an easy A, and he's only getting 10 points for the AP class at New Hope. But if you do that at Bob Jones, you get 20 points. And
Which we figured out was not right, because that's not what Bob
they do.
Jones
They skill two quality points on the GPA. A 73 gets you a 4.0 in Madison City. That is their policy. So, we can go back and revisit that, but this is something different. I'm okay with incentivizing folks to take AP.
Well, the whole thing, it says the rationale for this request, chronic absentee is now part of our state accountability. And so the whole premise here is that we're going to somehow improve our chronic absenteeism, and yet we don't think the chronically absentee people are even going to be affected by this. So the whole thing didn't make sense.
Last year we had over 50,000 absences from our high school students. That's what we're trying to improve.
So it's not chronic. So your rationale is
not the rationale is saying even the state is bringing in absenteeism as chronic absenteeism as part of accountability. They didn't tell us until probably a month before the report card went out that it was going to be chronic absenteeism. We didn't know it was overall attendance or whatever. The point is, we think when kids are at school, that's a good thing. This will get kids at school more often. It will give them a reason to be there. And more so if they're looking for kind of a day to slack off. And we want to reduce the 50,000 total absences from the
You have to be present to win.
Yeah, but it's sort of like giving everybody a participation award.
It's not giving them anything. It's saying you don't have to take an exam. That's 20% of your overall grade.
Well, and the other thing we need to consider is that the people that asked us to consider this are our principals and teachers, and those are the people who do this every day.
Every day.
Yeah. And they deserve an opportunity to have a chance to see whether or not this would work, because this is their idea, and this is their expertise, and this is what they do. And I think at some point we have to trust that our teachers and our principals may know more about educating students than I as a nurse practitioner do.
What if we have a compromise? What if we let the seniors exempt exams and we see what the senior absentee rate is?
What if we just trust the principals for what they
I'm
said?
I'm not willing to amend my recommendation.
Because I think that you're doing.
Well, then you
students a
should vote
disservice.
no.
And I will, and
Okay.
I'm trying to explain why, so maybe it might influence somebody else. So you're going to take away a final exam from all of the kids, and that exam prepares them for future education. They're going to have to take exams in college, so you're going to take away that potentially for their entire high school career. And they get to college, and they're going to have to take a final exam, and they're going to be blown away. It's not right. You take it away for the seniors. They've already proved themselves through their freshman, sophomore, they've gotten the experience of studying for a comprehensive exam. Let's do it for the seniors. It's an honor to be a senior. See how it affects your absenteeism, because you should be tracking it by grade, so you can see if it affected the seniors. And then the next year, if we see a great improvement in it, then we can go take it a step further.
Seniors have days, where they can do college visits and all of that, so that might be a little skewed.
I trust that our administrators are going to keep track of this by grade level, so we should be able to go back and revisit it and look at the grade level, what the absenteeism was at each grade level, and if we need to adjust it, we can adjust it. But I agree with Angie. I think we need to give the teachers and the administrators that have brought this to our attention and asked us to implement this policy at least a year to see what happens, and then we can go from there.
Last year we brought it up, and you didn't think that way, so what changed your mind?
I mean, I just think
Probably
we need
the 3 or 4 high school principals that were here testifying. So I'm asking for a vote. You made your point. Appreciate it. I would like for a vote on this. We still got a few other items on the agenda, and we're 2 hours in.
Good voting.
There has been a motion and a second.
There has been a motion and a second, so all those in favor,
Forgot.
please say aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
All right, I recommend approval of the textbook adoption as attached.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or question?
Are we going to buy any of these?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Whatever it,
Can we afford any of these?
yes, ma'am, we actually can. We've done a really good job right there.
Okay. Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, I recommend approval of the following personnel items in the addendum as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding personnel items? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Did we skip one?
I thought we did too.
We skipped the counselors and assistant principals. Not that we don't think they're important.
Yeah.
Hold that thought.
Did we mean to table that as well?
I did not. Did you want to table it?
I still have some concerns.
My G and that G is
Are different?
mixed up. Can I
still
recommend
have
it and
some-
we discuss, and then if y'all feel good about it, if not, we
Yeah,
can
I
carry
still
it.
have some concerns about. how
We
much they
tabling it?
do in the summer.
Which one? You said the
Oh,
principal
Okay.
one?
You okay with talking about it?
We can.
Okay. All right. Item G, I recommend approval of the counselor and assistant principal allocation guidelines as attached and presented at the last work session.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Did I hear you say you wanted to postpone this, Angie?
Yes, I was going to see if anybody else had discussion. I think that it is a fairly decent idea. I think that we need to probably spend just a little more time with our principals as well as our assistant principals and maybe even our counselors and make sure that that 187 is actually going to be long enough to finish up the school year. I think there's some concerns that have been voiced to me that 187 doesn't allow for that closure of the school year to happen in a timely manner and with enough manpower to be able to get that done efficiently. And efficiently doesn't sound that important until you start thinking about all the students that come in and come out at the end of the school year, especially with withdrawals and re-enrollments, and then you have at the high school level transcripts that have to be sent in a timely manner in order for scholarships and things to get initiated by the fall. I would appreciate more time to be able to consider the options that may be available. I do understand that it is a good option to be able to provide some AP assistance at some other schools during the school year. So I'm not ready to say that I don't think it's a good idea, but I do think that we need to reconsider whether or not this is the best idea for all schools that would be affected.
Are you talking specifically the breakout by?
I think specifically, really what is more important to me is that only having one person that goes past the 187, and whether or not all of our schools, I know that we talked a little bit the night that it was presented about the fact that there's really only one assistant principal that helps past a certain point, but I'm not sure we really evaluated that as well as we could have as a community. I'm sure it has been evaluated by the people who put this together, and I do appreciate that, but I think it would behoove us to be able to talk to our principals individually and make sure that we have ensured that we, if nothing else, that they understand it more readily than they do now so that they know what to expect when this is passed.
Mr. Massey, this was, the 187s would be through attrition, is that correct?
Correct.
So
Correct.
if they're
Yes.
currently 202s, they would remain 202s.
Yes, and I think we
Correct.
need to make that clear as well to people before we move forward, because I think there is some concern that people think they're going to take a cut in pay.
Right.
And I can understand where that comes from, because that maybe we haven't had the opportunity to communicate this as well as we could have and get the buy-in to be able to move forward with this.
So the one change we can make if it's high schools in particular. Now, in middle schools, that's how they work. In our elementary schools, all their counselors are 187. And in our middle schools, there's only one counselor on extended contract, and the additionals are 187. So this would really take the high schools to that model. Again, what this does is and it is a little bit of a give and take. We're adding counselors with this. We're adding a counselor at New Hope and in Madison County High School. And there's got to be kind of a pathway to do that. We could, I think, take the middle range, the high schools 1,000 or 1,500, and make that 2 202s and 187. So it gives you 2 extended contracts there. I think that would be something. So there's two counselors there that would do that. And again, this is approved on a year-to-year basis. Like if we did right here, if we did 2 and 1, this would take, right now our high school counselors are 212s. So it takes several years to eventually filter in. Now, what you guys are doing now is this is part of your documents you're now approving. Y'all have never approved counselor allocations before. So this is putting this under y'all's guidance, where it's kind of one of those things we can come back and visit it. Nothing's going to happen this is not going to happen next year, because it will happen through attrition as counselors retire or go to other schools. They'll gradually fit into this. I mean, it could take 10 to 15 years to eventually this to come through fruition, and obviously it's going to need, it can come up and be approved.
Right, and I agree that nothing will happen quickly, but that's also why I would respectfully ask that, if we can take another, we have a board meeting coming up May 8th, to be able to just think this through a little more carefully and make sure that we've communicated it well enough so that the people who it does affect, and I understand that it doesn't affect anybody that's in their current job, but the perception is that it would, and that it would affect the person who stays in the 202, who then has a 187 come in behind that, because it does change what they do at the end of the school year. Not so much with the counselors as it does the APs. Because I think that if they're using 2 people at the end of the year now, and one of those people becomes a 187 through attrition, I think they deserve the opportunity to hear how that would work ahead of time.
So right now, everybody's 202, is that right?
No. For counselors, elementaries are 187. Middle schools, the first one's 202, and every additional one is a 187. In our high schools, they're all 212s.
All 212.
Every one of them, yeah.
So that's the only thing that's changing, then, right? The 212s?
Correct. On the counselor allocations, it's just the high school brackets changing, and we adjusted that to be able to add, to justify up front, it would add to the budget, but through attrition, it would even it back out. And it would provide some aid at Madison County and New Hope.
This comes out of local funds, though, right?
Yes.
Right.
So
And
that's
I
why
agree
it has to come before us.
Yeah, and I agree that being able to add people is important, but I think taking the time to get that buy-in ahead of time is also equally important, and making sure that you're.
Have you had conversations with principals and administrators, counselors about this program, this process?
Yeah, this was all vetted through the Committee of 6. And again, those people are chosen by their peers. And part of the reason of having 6 folks to kind of vet through this, when you have a group of 28, there's going to be people that oppose. We have a group of 5. There's going to be people with different opinions. So that's why we have 6, and they serve 2-year terms, and they rotate in and out. And they felt good about this. If you remember, a few years ago, we actually presented an option to make all assistant principals 187-day to you guys, and that was actually Mr. Brown kind of helped lead that effort. And part of the reason is our principals are, when there's an assistant principal job and we have a tenured teacher that applies for that, if that's an extended contract, that person is tenured at that extended contract rate the first day they're on the job. So principals will generally go hire the person not from the district who does not have tenure in that extended contract. So what we pitched then, and kind of how I think this helps our people now, is it allows our teachers, our internal tenured teachers, a better shot, because if it doesn't work out, or if the teacher is like, that's assistant principal, they can go back and there's not a reduction in contract length, and it's a very easy transition. I think this is a great model, a 187 assistant principal, to be able to transition teachers into that assistant principal role before they get an extended contract. They're getting the extra pay from we bumped up their supplements just a little bit with that to kind of to handle the after-school stuff. As far as does every high school assistant principal need to be 217? If we can add a few more assistant principals, our committee of 6 said, yeah, we can probably do with not every assistant principal being 217. For our assistant principals, our elementary and middle schools are at 202, and the high schools are 217. So they're 30 extra contract days. So if somebody moves from school strand, their contract length, you can't change it with it. So, I mean, it just makes it complicated, and it's better for them all to be on the same length. And the 187 allows kind of a step in to that assistant principal role that's not as contract heavy there.
Angie, I've talked with Russell Rear at Sparkman Middle about this, and one of the things that he wants to do with his additional assistant principal is to take the two principals that are there now, or two of the principals, and use them to focus on instruction, monitoring the instruction. The other principal he would like to use, or wants to use that one to help with discipline. So he's not splitting the time between the two assistant principals he has now on discipline. He can use them to focus solely on their instruction, and then use the one on discipline. And that's kind of what that's his vision.
And I don't disagree that this may be an excellent plan. I don't disagree with anything you said as being a benefit to this plan. The only thing I'm asking is that we table it until the next board meeting so that we have time to discuss that with our individual principals and make sure that they have a plan and they've had the opportunity to review this, so we feel that we have represented them well.
I just think that's going to change how we operate. I mean, we met with the committee of 6, got pretty much.
It doesn't change how you operate.
I know it, but
it's what my duty is to the
I know, but we presented
district.
it 2 weeks ago in an open discussion, and then, man, right here, and then it's like we need more time. I mean,
I agree with Angie. I mean, let's vet it and know what we're doing.
okay.
But here's a question. This may be completely impossible, but could you put everybody on a 187 and then just contract with them for the extra days?
We consider that. Mr. Kubik says that gets complicated.
I think Karen just fell out of her chair.
Ken?
That could be used as a tool to say that they were 187 and you're contracting those extra days to avoid the 10-year law.
Right, and I don't think you can
possibly give our representatives from the Alabama Education Association a tool in which to say that they have earned tenure, have that extended contract.
Okay.
All right, what's the appropriate way to either vote no or to carry something over with this? Help me out, since there's been a motion and a second.
There's a motion and a second, then you'd need a motion to table and a second to table, and then the board would vote on the table.
Do we have to rescind the previous
No.
motion?
That motion and second.
I make a motion to table it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. All right. So that is
I thought you
table?
was gonna say something.
All right, that works. Where are we at? Are we on H? I think I had a double. We're on
Do you have
I.
double letters?
I think, yes, I'm good
We're
here.
on here, the electrical easement.
Okay. I recommend approval of the Madison County High School easement for Huntsville Utilities as attached.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
You gonna straighten that pole?
Mr. Wilkerson, will they be preparing the documents or giving you the legal description to prepare the easement deed?
Yes, ma'am, they will be. I'll bring that to you when it's.
Okay.
I appreciate the picture being straight this time.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion outside of the angle of the pole? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, is there any way to take a break?
I think everybody's waiting around for this next recommendation, unless they're waiting to see how straight the poll was going to be. I think I went out of order. I called personnel and
We
came back.
have previously taken what do we call it, a personal
3-minute
break
comfort break?
at about 2 hours, and we're about 2.5 hours in. I'm okay if we want to take a 5-minute recess.
I'm good with 5 minutes.
And
Okay.
does everybody need to know where the bathrooms are? We did vote on that.
That's why you don't want to.
Is Tom
Put yourself in that position.
Is he staying here?
I don't think he's staying for the whole
Is he
show.
staying to talk to us?
No, he's not talking about it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
He has the gavel hard.
take a break. I think everyone enjoyed it, and we'll now proceed with the remainder of the agenda.
All right. Item J will be, I recommend approval of the capital plan that funds items 3 through 32 on your attached, 2 through 32 on your attached capital plan here. That includes a renovation, upgrade, and expansion to Sparkman's lunchroom, a new band room, auditorium, and a bridge connecting the two. Madison County High School, Madison County gyms across the system, New Hope Elementary School roofing, and Hazel Green Elementary special needs roofing and pre-K upgrades, New Market corridors, Sparkman Middle safety upgrades, at about $1 million. Lynn Fanning, connection to the sewer system, Hazel Green Elementary HVAC replacement, Roofing Intermediate replacing gutters, downspouts, roofing and coping, New Hope Elementary corridors to the education wing, New Hope High School corridors connecting there, Buckhorn's Blue Gym roof, Hazel Green Elementary's mechanical system, Buckhorn High School's roofing over the corridors in the gymnasium, Madison County Elementary School restrooms in the historic building, Sparkman Middle HVAC, replacement classroom and heating units, Hazel Green High School's gutters, downspouts, and coping, Madison County High School paving, New Market School roofing and shingles, Lynn Fanning kitchen renovation and addition of classrooms for about $4 million, Madison County system upgrades to media centers, Central School addition and new dining room, New Hope Elementary School restrooms for staffs and students, Owens Crossroads restrooms for staff and students, New Hope Elementary School roofing over the main gym, Madison County School System HVAC in some of the system district level buildings, Monrovia Elementary School repair the pod, Central School replace the lagoon, Madison County School System parking lots renovations phase 1, Riverton Intermediate enclosing the stairwells, Buckhorn High School construction of a culinary classroom.
Say what?
The superintendent recommended approval. Said motion.
Second?
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the capital plan. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Madison, let me say something real quick. No doubt the Hazel Green issues in particular, several of these issues need to be done, but we have a wing in Hazel Green, special needs wing that needs roofing, and HVAC issues for our most vulnerable populations, and that needs to be done. But I will say, with a funding agreement, with an agreement in hand, would it not be wise to allow a small amount of time for the county commission to make a decision on this settlement before we proceed down this path of voting on this capital plan?
Yeah, I think we allowed more than a small amount of time. I do think that agreement is going to be settled. It's inevitable. I mean, there's really no other option.
What I mean by a small amount of time, I don't mean weeks. I mean within a matter of days, no more than a week, to make that determination.
I think, you know, we carried it over from last meeting a couple weeks ago, and we're at the end of the school year, and if we want to get a good start on these projects in the summer, we need to be able to accept the bids that we have in hand, which is the next item for recommendation, and to begin putting out other bids for these other projects. If we miss this window right now, then we miss an entire summer of work, and some of those would be delayed. I think the commission would understand why we're doing this. I think they're not going to argue against those things. They understand the intent of the board, and I don't think funding these items that need to be funded puts that agreement, or this resolution agreement, in risk at one bit.
I completely disagree.
Well, I guess from the perspective of, and Carrie, you can help me, if we're talking about, say, 7 or 8 days, say, for instance, the county commission were to accept this agreement, we give them that check, as you mentioned, that agreement is done. We're finalized. We can go through this with a clear conscience and say, hey, look, they agreed with this. We're okay. We can then fund all these projects. We need to fund all these projects. There's no doubt, from my opinion. But that would resolve this issue in a short amount of time. I'm not talking about 2 weeks. I'm not talking about 3 weeks. I'm talking about at the next county commission meeting, if they could have this agreement settled. If there's no answer, that's an answer for me. If there's an answer, great. But get this resolved before we press on down this path. Just from my 2 cents.
Yeah, and it's got to be resolved.
No doubt.
And but these other projects have to be completed. Now, this isn't an expenditure of funds. This is allowing us to go ahead and prepare for this, and it's something that, honestly, I've been, since you've been on the board for 2 years, and District 4 and 5 has been on for a year and a half, that we've been going until then. This, we've been patient, we've been long-suffering, and I think from the comments tonight, when every school feels like they get the short end of the stick from our school system, we hear that from Newmarket, we hear it from Owens Crossroads, we hear it from Sparkman, we hear it from Monrovia, we hear it from Hazel Green. Everybody feels like they're the last to get something. And you know what? Every single one of them's right. Every single one of them's right. Every one of them are getting the short end of the stick. And you know what? The commission helped us secure more funds than what we could originally do back 5 years ago. But now we're in a position to where the short end of the stick's not happening anymore. We can address these needs, and I think the Board of Education has been more than accommodating since we instructed our attorney to try to start negotiation with the commission in November, and Districts 4 and 5 have met with the commission. I'm not sure if you did. I know, Mary Louise and Angie met with them, and then I needed to meet with them, so me and Angie met with them, and then we all needed to meet with them, and then we need to give them an offer, and then we still,
we're stepping through the process.
I don't disagree.
And that process is going to be accelerated due to the action from this board. This board needs to take action. All right? We've sat back, we've waited, and we've been long-suffering. It is time to act. These students and parents are here waiting for you to act. It is time to serve them who elected you, not to serve at the timeline of the commission who they also elected, and they are going to have to answer to them too. We don't have to answer to them. We need to proceed in what needs to be done. The commission needs to respect that. That's what we've gotten from the commissioners here. And then we need to negotiate out the other agreement, which is still there, and we can still enter into those negotiations. We have been extremely, I feel, accommodating with them. We have jumped every time they've said hop into any meeting, any public meeting, any forum, into their arrangements. It is time. You guys are here to act, and you all asked to be board members. You volunteered for this, and I mentioned in the State of the Schools, a month ago, that of encouraging our people it's time to be bold. That's our hashtag this whole year. Be bold, MCSS, and it is tough. It is tough to say, you know what, we're going away from something that was agreed upon from a previous administration. But you do need to have a clean conscience and a clear conscience. I certainly do. If you don't, I don't know what else on the clock we got to do. Either way, whether you guys vote this down, carry it over, or vote it yes, we're going to be in the same position when we go to the commission at their next meeting of them approving this agreement or not. Your action tonight is totally independent on whether they accept this agreement or not. But what will happen is, yet again, all of these projects will get delayed all across our system, where everybody has gotten the short end of the stick for too long. And it is time to have the greatest system-wide improvements this county has ever seen. when we do this, there should be confetti and ribbons, and we're going to have so many ribbon cuttings and things. And it's time, guys. It is time. It is
Can we hear from
the end of April.
Nathan, I agree with you in principle. I truly do. I think that, you know, if we vote to fund this, it's going to have to go down to Montgomery anyway to be reviewed and approved, and that's probably going to take a week. Okay, so that process will take us over to next week. I barely had time to get dinner down my throat last night from all the emails, Facebook messages, text messages, and phone calls from constituents, from my own district, people that live in your district, Sherry, people that live outside of my district and Sherry's district, to a T said, you all need to make a move on this. We're tired of waiting. It's been 5 years. We've got to move forward. We've got to take the next step. And I you all know where my feelings are on this.
Well, all that's
but
fine,
we need to show these folks here tonight and everybody else that we are serious about trying to fix the problems in our school. And I just don't think that another week is going to matter. I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, what if they come back in a week and say, well, we don't accept your offer?
Then we'll deal with that when it happens.
But I mean, then we're right back here having the same discussion again.
Well, no, it's a whole different set of circumstances, because now we've offered something and they've rejected it. That's a totally different situation.
I think it's time to move forward.
But we made another offer, which was a good offer, and they rejected it.
That was because the timeline was different than they wanted. Now we've come back and given them the timeline they want.
Did they give you any indication yesterday that they would accept?
They were
the
ready
$2
to accept,
million?
but procedurally they could not, because one of their members was not there.
There was a motion to do it, and then there was a long pause for the second, and then, you know, the
County administrator.
there was a motion on the table to move it forward.
So procedurally, you know that they wouldn't have been in violation of their own policy to bring that up.
I know they've operated with 5 commissioners for a while now, and I don't know, I haven't attended every meeting about them adding items to the agenda.
But that's different, because the commissioner died.
But if it's unanimous from there, that's their procedures. I mean, I didn't. They can proceed how they want to. Right? But I guess the question was, have you received indication they're going to support it?
Yeah, I think we received it yesterday, but procedurally they couldn't bring it to a vote. That's
So
the
what approving this puts that in jeopardy?
Approving this says, you know, who cares about contract law? Who cares about ethics? Let's go commit the same pot of money 2 different ways at the same time. That's not right. You don't do business that way. We're going through the steps. We had that meeting. We've got a settlement agreement here. We let them vet that settlement agreement, agree to it or disagree, and then we go on our merry way. But you're trying to, this is not what we're teaching our students. We're not teaching our students, hey, do the right thing until it's not convenient for you. It's like, do the right thing and follow the laws.
Your definition of doing the right thing is doing the thing your way. And,
No, it's not.
Honestly, we have
No, it's
delayed,
not.
and we've done this since November. And we've gotten the support of 2 commissioners of, I don't know, I heard do your job. You know, you guys are not here to answer to another entity other than the people that voted you in. And, you know, you can vote, you need to vote your district.
We voluntarily signed that agreement. Nobody put a gun to our heads to sign that BRAC agreement. We signed it, we committed to it. Now we need to step through the procedures to get out from under it. That was our voluntary decision of a board, some of whom are not here anymore.
And guess what? You can decide to not get out from under it, and that's okay. I'm trying to make the case why now is the appropriate time to act.
So apart from that discussion, let's look at item. Let's look at item 87. So tell me why we have purchased land for New Hope High School District K through 8, Buckhorn High School grades 7 and 8. How come that's a more likely need than a high school in Monrovia?
That is the second to bottom item on the list.
It's on the list.
Would you like me to remove it?
I'm asking for an explanation.
I will remove item 87 from the capital plan.
Well, and at the
it's
time
not
that was
funded.
added,
It's unfunded.
keep in mind that at the time that was added, Buckhorn was above capacity and we were floating 5 classrooms. So I don't negate that perhaps we should reevaluate But I think that the intent at that time was that we were as equally overcrowded as Sparkman at that time, and there was land proximal to the school that could be developed in the future after we finished up where we were. So I'm not saying I'm arguing, I'm just saying there was intent at the time due to the amount of students who were in that school.
Okay,
At
well,
that
I'm
time,
saying-
we had 1,451 students at Buckhorn High School.
I'm saying either take it off or put Monrovia High School back on, because the need in Monrovia is every bit as much as that.
Next year, it will be the first year Buckhorn High School will be below 100% capacity. And they dropped to 6A in that. There's been a decline in enrollment the last 5 years there. But when this was put on, before I got there, the plan when they built, when I came in, to my understanding, was that 7th and 8th grade school that's on the same campus with the sidewalk in between high school with 2,200 people on a campus, was for that to be the 9th grade school, because you can build middle schools cheaper than high schools. And there's land adjacent that's available for there. And that was under the done previously, and that's why it's kicked down to the bottom, because right now that is not an urgent need.
This is how I view the capital plan. I view the capital plan as everything that is funded is right now. And everything that's unfunded to 2022 is a dream. It's a wish list. It's something that we might be able to do, that we might not be able to do. We review this capital plan at least once a year, if not multiple times a year. So, in 2021, if we see a need to build a high school in the Monrovia community on the Pine Grove land, we can put it on the capital plan. If conditions are that we see that in 2024 there's going to be a need for a school, we can put it on the capital plan in 2020 or 2021 and unfund it, just like we're unfunding the purchase of a land here. I mean, if you want to put it down there and put it as unfunded in 2022, I don't care. But what I'm saying is that everything below the funded line is a wish list. We're putting it down there because these are things that...
So why don't we take everything off that's unfunded if it doesn't matter?
Part of the purpose of the capital plan is to turn into the state, so the state knows how to look forward to budget in future years for what would need to be
Okay, so
funded.
it does matter.
There is some relevance to it. Whether or not that changes is...
Well, if it matters, we ought to have it right.
I would say this, you guys approved in November a 5-year capital plan. What we're doing here tonight, I'm asking you to fund the items that were marked unfunded. Fund the items that we can actually fund. Now, if we want to go back and change the items down there, that really needs to be done the next summer when we approve next year's 5-year capital plan that we have to do by October 1 of every year. All right,
I think it needs to be done. How come it's okay to take a high school off, but it's not okay to put it back?
The high school is taken off in November. I'm asking you to fund the items of what the board approved in November.
And I'm asking you to make this make sense.
We had a lengthy discussion, and we sat down with each board member about what items need to be on this capital plan in the fall. So we can go back and readdress all that next fall. What this does is it funds the items that the board approved or we have funding to do. So this is funding the capital plan that the board approved in November.
And I'm saying it's a plan that doesn't make sense.
So to make it make sense, you would want to add a high school in the Monrovia area somewhere around the number 88.
That would at least make it make sense.
Or would you want to add something that at some point in the future we may have growth, and so we could possibly need to add a high school in every area of the county? I mean,
Well,
what's difficult?
I guess I'm trying to follow the logic. It's okay to put a purchase of land for New Hope High School and Buckhorn High School that I guess is some kind of a dream, I guess. But it's not okay to dream for Monrovia.
Well, that's what I'm saying is so you're saying for you, it would be more palatable if we added a high school in the Sparkman area?
Yeah.
Back to the capital plan.
Yeah, because I think we're going to grow out there because we got 10,000 jobs coming, and I don't think it's wise to take it off the plan. I agree we can't fund it right now without some help from the commission, but it's still a reality.
If you don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that. Okay, Kerry will add that, just add item 89 on the bottom of the capital plan there. We'll add a new high school in the Sparkman area.
Yeah, I think we say
You wanna-
Sparkman cluster.
Kerry estimated 60 million, is that what we had before?
Yeah, I think that's the most difficult part about the ones down farther is what we can estimate them to be right now and what they will be by the time is somewhat difficult as
Yeah,
well.
and that's why we
I think it's
updated.
almost impossible, but I think that's why yearly we update
That's
that.
right.
What we used to do is meet in June and have a retreat, and we would go over all the data available for different areas to include the capital plan. And then at that point, we would discuss what to add and subtract for the following year, depending on how things had changed over the previous year.
Mr. Wilkerson, historically, do we get down this list? I mean, I know we've been doing this for multiple years. Do we get down to, say, number 45, or, well, we're past that, but would we get to eventually Walnut Grove gymnasium roofing, or do we wait till it breaks at that point?
Unfortunately, in the past, what we've done is we recognize that it's, in the case of Walnut Grove's roof, we estimate the breakthrough to be just over too many holes in about 5 years. And when it comes 5 years down the road, usually we haven't had any money to do anything from 0 to 5. We keep bumping things down, and it just builds its way back to the top. So we end up reacting to our biggest needs that year, and that's kind of how we built a capital plan and funded it in the past. But we do recognize it is a need by being on that list. We just never get to the bottom.
And I think Dave is correct. I think at one point in time, Dr. Davis actually asked for an athletic wish list, basically, to be added to the end of the capital, of things that we... A long time ago, and perhaps it's time to look at the capital plan differently and not add those things.
I think we do. I think we need to look at it and have a plan as to how we're going to accomplish these goals and what's the, I mean, if we're just putting on a list and it is never to be done,
yeah,
then it doesn't make sense. You could argue it doesn't make sense to be on the list.
Right.
So,
and you could also argue that it communicates the wrong message
It does.
to our communities, that we're actually considering some of these things when really
No
what they
reality
were a
that
list of
it's gonna be
things that
done.
we would like to have if the pot of gold was at the end of the rainbow.
Well, I would love to, I think we could have part of a summer retreat to actually go through and just sit down with the capital plan and just rehash everything out. I do know that what we have marked funded here, or what's recommended, are our needs right now. And so I think we can do both of those things. We can get started on these projects, and if we want to look at kind of revamping what is the capital plan and kind of, is it our beacon way of becoming an elite school system? That's kind of how I viewed it. What do we need to become elite? Well, we have auditoriums at every high school. That needs to be on there.
Every high school.
Every high school.
Should be nice.
But y'all really have an auditorium already, too. Is that right?
Yes, we have one that was built in the 30s and one that was built in the 50s that the community in New Hope has recently redone at their own expense. With the help
I would
of-
love to have that over on our side, but we don't
Well-
have anything.
well, I'd love to have that at Hazel Green, and I'm sure Buckhorn as well.
Well,
and I think we need to
I think
advocate
we're
for
okay
that.
with that. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I think...
What was that?
I was joking. I said, I think we're okay with that one, but I was kidding.
Honestly, and that needs to be something we need to discuss this summer. Does that need to be the next big thing we do? Does that accelerate to the top after we fund these other items? I
I
made
would
the
say
case to put it number one, a couple years ago.
Oh, yes.
But we have these other dire needs we need to take care of now. But, I think that is, we had our speech about the arts and performances, and we're not going to be a complete school system until we can offer our students the same opportunities that other students in all of our area schools have. That's the conversation I just had with about a half dozen students there during our break. Until we get that, they feel a little second rate, and it's time to move in that direction. I think we can talk about that this summer. I think this capital plan, approving that, gets us going in that direction. So.
Well, and I think the biggest question tonight is really whether approving it tonight or making a special session to approve it May 3rd, does that actually change how the commission responds in any way? And I don't think we'll ever, trying to guess that tonight is impossible. I know that up until this point, we have not received a tremendous amount of positive response. I think even yesterday we had 2 commissioners that were readily willing to admit openly that they would accept the offer that we had made. The other three that were available actually never gave any indication one way or the other than, I think the two that said they would also asked could it be added to the agenda. The other three, I don't think ever gave any indication one way or the other whether they were willing to accept, or that's the takeaway I took from that, is that we did have some positive response from two of our commissioners. And I really can't tell you whether approving this tonight or waiting a week is actually going to be beneficial. I feel that it's likely that whatever decision they were going to make has already been made, and that this may or may not impact anybody. I did not get the feeling that anybody was on the fence about how they were going to proceed.
I think it puts us at risk to approve it tonight, because you're not following contractual law. And so why would you want to do that? Why wouldn't you just want to wait till they meet again and then see what happens? Why would you want to take a risk that you don't have to take? Nothing's going to change in a week.
Well, in the real world, when you make somebody an offer to renegotiate a contract and they don't accept that, they should give you, what they want. What would they, a counter offer, come back to us. They didn't do that.
Well, you didn't give them adequate time. You didn't
They
give
could
them
have told
30
us
days.
yesterday, Sherry. They
The
could have
letter
given us
was dated March 20.
They could have told us, they could have made a counter offer to us yesterday at that meeting.
Procedurally, they weren't allowed to, Dave. We
Well,
can't
I think-
change all the
but-
rules
well,
to fit
Ms.
your
They could have made a
design.
counter
Ms.
offer
Rucker,
to
I
the.
think they had the capacity to make us an offer yesterday, informally. They could have,
Yes.
and they could have at least, as we all committed about the half cent, we all commented that we support that. They could have even informally gave us an idea of what their position was, and they didn't do that yesterday.
Well, the way I took the meeting was they were going to call it to a vote, and then they discovered, hey, we can't do this because all of our commissioners.
They were going to
aren't
call
here.
it into a vote of Matt's offer to return the $2 million.
That's exactly right.
What I'm saying is, they could have turned to us at that meeting and said, here is a counter offer to the offer
They
that you
couldn't add
offered on
anything to the
20 March.
agenda, Dave. That was the whole issue.
We didn't have an agenda, Sherry. We never had an approved agenda for that meeting. We went into that meeting, in my mind, it was a good meeting. I'm not discrediting that. But we did not have an agenda going forward. We kind of just winged it from the start.
But whatever their rules are, they couldn't put that up for a vote. They procedurally couldn't do that. They have their own rules they follow. I didn't go back to read them and verify that they were actually telling us, but
I agree
Well,
with
even
Mr. Curry.
procedurally, if they have their rules, they could have given us an indication as to what their posture was at that meeting. That was a perfect opportunity to tell us where they stood with that, even informally. That would have been sufficient enough for me to give me some sense of where the commission was headed. They chose not to do that.
But even if they had done it, that's not formally getting out of this agreement. You need to do it the right way. If you start doing business just however you feel like doing it, and you don't follow the laws, who's going to want to do business with you? I mean, you tell them you're going to do something, and then just, hey, we're not going to do it, and we're not going to get out of it in a rational, business-like way.
I think part of it is there's never been an established right way to do this. But what is right is that we were elected to support the people of our communities.
There is a way, Angie. It's in contractual law. You don't just flippantly
There's
just
no
say.
law that says how you get out of something like this. There's no
You dissolve the
method or
contract.
step book or parameter, especially if in that setting, the party that you're working with has said that they do not want to negotiate. or
They
they've
didn't
given
say
no
that.
indication.
No response does not mean
What's
we will not
interesting is that
negotiate.
Mr. Rich, their attorney, used the exact term they rejected,
Mhm.
lifted his hands and said that exactly.
That's right, because they don't want to
And they
accept the money
rejected,
over
and
2
then
years.
they said that they would not make a counter, that they were not going to negotiate. And
No.
we came back with an offer to do the due diligence of seeing it through, because at the last meeting, we were requested to make that whole board, whole commission meeting happen, and we did that. So how many steps is it? Because there's no method on this, there's no rule book. So at what point are we finally going to reach a point that we say,
Well,
okay, we've stepped and stepped and stepped and stepped? Because in December, you came to us and said they want to meet with 2 board members. We met with 2 board members. Came back, said they want to meet with superintendent. We did that. Want to meet with the whole board. We did that. So at what point have we not done the right thing?
Well, I believe we got Commissioner Jones here that can bring it to a vote at your next meeting. And
he
that's
is
the
still
end
well
result.
within his right to do that.
Right, and so we wait for that process. That way you don't
And
put
waiting
yourself
gets
at
us
risk.
what?
Waiting is May 3rd. Okay, it's not that long away. I'm not trying to get out of this. I'm just trying to do it the right way.
You've been trying to get out of this since you got here.
What are you talking about?
You've argued that we need to not do anything but the Monrovia High School since the day you stepped foot on the board.
No, I haven't, Angie.
I've never heard you say anything different.
If we have the money to do the high school, I'm still very much for it, but I can recognize financially, we can't do the high school. I'm not arguing
We're not
that.
going to be any more financially stable next Thursday.
But I'm not trying to get the high school done by waiting. I'm trying to do things the right way.
When does it end? And I'm
Next.
asking you honestly, when does it end? When do you
Well, if
finally
he
say
brings it
we've
to a-
stepped and fetched enough? Because I'm
If-
getting a little weary of the meetings and the we'll do this next time. Because we've been told every time there'll be a decision after that.
If Commissioner Jones brings it to a vote, if they refuse to bring it to a vote,
Because you talk about what we teach our students. I don't teach my daughter that she can continue to tell me she's going to give me an answer and that she never does.
Well, you haven't played the process out enough. So
How long is that process?
I'm trying to tell you. I've told you probably
Are
3
you-
times already, May 3rd, or whenever it is they meet.
So what keeps them from being able to meet that day pending our vote tonight?
It's doing the right thing,
No,
the right
what
way
keeps
at the
them from
time.
being able to bring that to a vote and voting in the positive?
But in the meantime, we violated our agreement. That's the difference. You can violate your agreement. If you fund these projects, you've said, we're going to spend the $46 for our high school, because that agreement's still in place until you get rid of it.
They already know that.
Or it doesn't matter verbally what you know. You have to follow the law. You have to get
There's no
out of
law.
it.
Where's the law?
When you
Find
made
me the
the
law that
contract.
says I got to meet one more time.
When you
I need to know where that law is.
When you signed that contract, what did you sign you were going to do? You were going to build a high school.
Also said we were going to build a 7th and 8th grade wing at Madison County High School.
No, it was
I didn't say
unfunded on that agreement, in the BRAC agreement. You didn't say that. You said you were going to build a high school. So until you agree that you're not with the person that you told that you were, then you should not go and commit those funds a different way. And May 3rd, he can bring it to a vote. They vote on it, we're out of it, and then we go ahead and.
What
'cause
about
I
your
agree,
community that stood up at that meeting and asked to please move forward?
Procedurally, they couldn't. Okay, we keep
Not
going over
that,
the
not
same
them,
thing.
the ones who said they don't want a high school anymore. They want Sparkman fixed. 2, 3 came back tonight and said that
I'm
exact
not arguing
thing.
that. That's exactly the direction
So
we're
when
going
do
to go.
you respect their hoops they want us to jump through?
After May 3rd. That's probably the 5th
But
time
what
I said
about
it.
voting tonight keeps May 2nd from happening?
Because you violated your agreement. I mean, we keep
We're
going. I
violating the
said it.
agreement no matter how we do it.
No, you're not. If you get out of the agreement, you don't violate it.
If they let us out of the agreement May 2nd, then it's not violated.
They're going to meet on May 3rd, I believe.
Second.
May 2nd?
Are you
Which
okay
one
with
is it?
violating it if
Second.
they don't accept it?
Let's take that step when it gets there. It doesn't make sense for them
I think
not to
we're
bring
there.
it to a vote. I think everybody could say that that is irresponsible on their part.
I think we've pleaded our case in every way, shape, and form. And we've been accommodating in every way, shape, or form. And,
Well, you need to accommodate just a little bit more.
No, we don't.
Yes, you do.
These who we need to accommodate. The kids
So
in our
another-
school system are who we are here to support is who we need to accommodate.
So another problem I have with the capital plan is this $22 million. It's just a blanket amount. We don't know, it's just some fuzzy, what is it? I
You
think we
do.
need to break that down item by
I
item.
broke it
because-
down in November for you guys.
No, I don't want to vote on it until it's broken down, because we have disagreement. Are we going to
Okay,
fund
it's
a
obvious how
turf?
you're going to vote on this
Harry,
capital plan. I'm not breaking it down.
You provided us with a breakdown at the last board meeting, I thought. I don't have it with me, but I'm pretty
And
sure
we've
you
not
provided
approved
us.
that breakdown yet, but you did
And we're
provide us
going to
with a
have to
breakdown.
approve those individual items as they
Yeah,
come
bids
down.
come up,
Well, how
right.
do we know it equates to 22 million if we don't even know what we're voting on? I think we need it item by item.
You provided that.
I did, I'll try to find it.
Yeah, but he provided it, but then we're not bound by it, so.
You're
so
not
we
bound
don't
by
know-
any of these.
I mean, 22 million is an estimate. I mean, it could come in lower than 22 million.
Well, why do we have anything on here? They're all estimates at this point. So it's no,
You have to show your budgeted estimate.
Right, they're all estimates. So, I
so
mean.
we need to know what we're we're voting on.
So is there any new discussion or anything else that we haven't already
I'm confused on
covered?
that.
Any new discussion or anything that hasn't already been covered? In that case, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 No.
Motion passes.
All right, I recommend the board award the bid for Hayes Green Elementary School roofing project and the bid for the Hayes Green Elementary School HVAC project as attached.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the Hazel Green mechanical and roof bid?
I can't see it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstain.
Are we done?
That's it.
All right, at this point, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless there's any further discussion. We can go around the table and be happy to listen. Mr. Curry, anything to add to this evening?
Nothing to add. Well, I will say this, that, the county commission, I appreciate the meeting we had. Once again, Roger, thank you for your support to Madison County Schools. I hope as we go forward in this process, we're going to need the county commission's support, particularly with the half-cent sales tax. So I hope that we can work together. We can continue to press on that because we have critical needs. This is just the beginning. We have multiple things we need to do throughout our district, and I hope Commissioner Strong and others, as yourself, will work with us.
Ms. Rucker?
I think it's a no.
Mr. Weiss?
I'll echo what Nathan has to say. We appreciate coming and having that joint meeting yesterday. And he's right. We do need to find a path forward to work together as a team. We're independent bodies, but we rely on each other. And we need to work together to come up with solutions to make the Madison County school system better so that Madison County can be even stronger and better as a county. And I look forward to working with you and the other commissioners moving forward to try to come to some better solutions. Thank you.
And I would just say that we have to have a working relationship with the commission. We're dependent on them for lots of things, and I hope they'll understand why we've done what we did tonight. And Craig alluded to instruction. As I listened to the people here tonight with the arts from the Sparkman area, those are very lacking in the area that I represent, and that takes money. And we don't, the care center they provide the arts for New Hope High School. But, other than that, we have adjunct people, so they're not really getting what they deserve. Every child deserves the same. And our strategic plan talks about equity, and I think we need to start looking at that. But we have to have money to provide those things. We operate on bare bones, and our kids deserve better than that. And I'm hoping that, in the days ahead, that the commission will work hand in hand with us to provide what our children need.
I would agree. I do appreciate all the county commission has done. I don't take lightly the fact that we weren't able to fulfill that agreement that we made with each and one of you. I also agree with the gentleman who spoke earlier. It's our duty to try to find other funding sources. I don't think the commission is solely responsible for that. They have one decision that could affect that, and that's their decision to make, but otherwise, we as a board need our community to support us as we move forward, because there are things that we can do as a community to be able to provide better funding to our students, but it's going to take all of us to move forward. We represent you by delegated authority, which means truly we don't do anything without consulting and making sure that we have your permission to move forward as our community. And so I would hope that you would join us as we move forward, because Ms. Rucker is correct in that we can't move forward even without building that high school, without trying to obtain some sort of funding source that puts us in a position where we can remain sustainable and continue to offer a high-quality education. And I do thank you for every single person who sat here for the last 3 hours tonight. It's your type of support that we need in order to continue to move forward well. And with that, if nobody else has anything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Anything else?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.